What is up, RotoGrinders? 9:30 on the East Coast. It means it's the start of 3.5 hours of nonstop NFL DFS conversation starting right now with the People's Show. It is the start of bye weeks. It is week 5. We have more information. We have less games. There's a game kicking off right now in London. Just keep an eye on it, I suppose. It's Minnesota and the Jets on the NFL Network. If you want to put that in mute and listen to us, by all means, go for it. Myself, TastefulTides, Tim Buell. 3-entry max specialist, single game specialist, a cash game specialist. He does it all. And then, of course, you have Bobby Gomes, former $1 million winner. Little contentious pre-show. We were both fired up. I'm looking forward to the next hour and a half until we yield to SquirrelPatrol, Erik, and Neil. Bobby, we got to bring the fire on air too.
We're beefing right now for sure. We're beefing.
You thought I was challenging one of your conviction plays in Lineup HQ? I just thought it was an interesting. I just was pointing it out. I just picked one at random, of course, and I said, that's an interesting play to have as one of your conviction plays. And we'll discuss. Everybody, a lot of people participate as far as their conviction plays. Yours are up there on the board on Lineup HQ. I'm sure producer TJ was showing those off at some point. But Bobby, happy Sunday, week 5, 11 games on FanDuel, 10 games on DK, but some big totals, a lot of injuries. I feel like we're going to get some big scores today. How are you? How are you feeling today? How are you feeling about today's slates?
Yeah, I was doing better prior to hopping on the show and getting attacked at 9:30 a.m. I was doing a lot better. You know what I mean? But we're here. We're gonna grind it out, and I'm gonna deal with you for the next hour. Happy to see
it's a little longer than that. Sorry,
Bobby, I apologize for my part because I think I'm just grumpy because it's 7:30 in the morning here. And so that wasn't me coming at your play as much as me coming at the time of day.
Okay, no, TJ, I'm fine. Me and you, we're cool. But I think it was Dean that there was like something there. It was like he had seen it prior and he just had to take a shot, You're fine. There's no beef with us.
I was twirling my mustache the entire time pre-show. I could not wait to.
You could not wait. I know you couldn't. Yeah.
It's like the heel turn, the chair to the back, that kind of thing. But
yep.
All right. Yeah, I apologize for dare questioning one of your days.
Question anything I do.
You won $1 million bucks. So who am I? I'm just some dope that never did. So I can't question it.
There you go.
Bobby's going to win $1 million with Cam Akers today. It's 100% happening.
Yeah.
Tim just let the people know that's who it was. The Cam Akers experience. He is low owned, which that's one angle you can work, and it's kind of a leverage deal as well because people are going to be playing some Houston stuff. Bobby, we got an hour and a half, a little bit less than an hour and a half now. Oh, we didn't say hi to the chat. What's up, chat? How's everything going? Hit that like button. Do subscribe. Turn on those notifications. Do all those things to help us keep the lights on. Bobby, how are you feeling as far as the slate on the overall? Because you were saying like there's some chalky stuff. Like, oh, Dean, you like the chalk, of course. I didn't. It was there was an implication, which is like an insult, I guess. Like you like good players on good teams. What kind of dope are you?
You like good players. Yeah,
it's a fun accusation.
Cam Akers. No,
I like the guy that has no ACLs. How about that? Yeah. What's up, Bobby? What do we think of the slate?
Yeah, it looks exciting. No buys, so it's going to be a shorter slate. I do have like some question marks on some of this chalk, so interesting to hear like where you guys are at from a chalk perspective, because I know Dean. He's always on the right plays. And those are the best content guys, the guys who are always on the right plays, because then you know where to go off the right plays.
I don't know how to respond to that.
Yeah. It looks like a fun slate. It could be high scoring, like Tim said. We'll dive into it. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, I mean, are you well, I guess we can kind of dig in this as the show progresses, but are you going to have your 4 quarterbacks and that's that? Have you figured those out just yet? We're still kind of figuring it out. The conversation, maybe you'll be whittling them down as the show progresses.
I think I had 6 when I ran projections last night. I ended up at 6, but I got to rerun stuff. I'm doing it as we speak, so we'll see. I have 6 that I like though. I know one. I can tell you one thing. I don't think I'm going to be playing Jordan Love today. or I'll definitely be under the field on Love, where I think Dean will have he can't wait to put Jordan Love in his lineup today, I would imagine.
I mean, he's in a dome on the turf. He's got really, really cheap weapons.
This sounds I just can see I know what your lineup is right now.
Well, no. Well, I really built my lineup is. I haven't built it. Do you want to just build it for me? That'd be much easier, actually. Yeah, I mean, they're without a couple of their players. Of course, Dobbs got suspended. And I'm forgetting who the other one is. Who's the other guy, Tim? That's not playing football because actually got Watson. Watson football this week. By the way, Kittle expected to play. McBride expected to play. And Njoku expected to play. They did suggest maybe one of those wishy-washy. He might be on a bit of a pitch count. Who knows? Beckham expected to make. This is going to turn the season all around for Miami. Oh, that's why Bobby should be in a good mood. Beckham is back. That's his boy.
Why do you think I like Odell Beckham?
We hit
yeah.
That's all we had to talk about all off season is how much you love Odell Beckham, Bobby.
I do like Beckham in this offense, actually. Maybe I'll throw him in my player pool today. I think I like Hundley today.
Oh boy,
wow.
No.
Wow.
He's one of the 4 or 5 is going to make the cut.
He's on the fringe of the 6, but he might be in there.
He's on the fringe of my top 20 quarterbacks, right in the fringe. Right in the fringe. I haven't quite figured out 19, 20, 21. We'll talk about it. He's got legs, but
a lot of jabs.
The arm. Woof. My guy McDaniel, he's not quite figured it out there. I know it's tough with the quarterback 4 I'm right now, but
I like McDaniel, but he should probably lose his job at this point.
Well, he just signed an extension to 2029, so that's probably not happening. Yeah, they just signed him a 3-year. They added 3 years, I believe, right when the season started.
Well, I guess it's good way of security.
A lot of my friends are Dolphin, so I'm hearing it. So I'm defending him. And you got to fire this guy. And I'm like, you can't. That's not how this. They had the number 1 offense of football last year. What do you want? They lost their quarterback, and the plan B is not good. I don't know if they had a plan B. Anyways, Tim, what do you have as far as your thought? Well, I didn't give the whole rundown. Robinson expected to play. The only thing with Green Bay, of course, Luke Musgrave is not officially ruled out unless I missed it. He's severely doubtful, highly unlikely, highly improbable, however you want to phrase it. He's not expected to play, and he was also getting surpassed anyway. As far as rotation wise, reps wise, snaps wise, targets wise, when it comes to their tight end position on Green Bay, Kraft has passed them by. So yeah, Reed, Wicks, Bo Melton, I think is really, really interesting as a cheapie. One of my favorite cheapies on the board, and then Tucker Kraft. So yes, I'm in on Green Bay. I wish Love had some more legs, but he's 303 gets the job done as well. Tim, your thoughts as far as this slate and cash games? How much Packers is too much Packers as far as Packers receivers? Have you bantied that back and forth? Because I've not ran optimals, just straight optimals, and adding some stuff to it. I imagine you're getting at least 2 of Wicks, Kraft, and Reed. Am I wrong in saying that? If you just hit optimize.
Yeah, you're getting all 3 of those guys.
Is that too much?
Yeah. I personally think you should be playing no more than 3 Packers in your cash game lineup. That's just my opinion. Obviously, you want to add in Love or whatever. I don't know. I feel like when you play 4 players in the same team in cash, you're really asking for trouble. So I'm going to limit mine to 3. I'm not playing Love, but that is subject to change.
Purdy?
I might take. What's that?
Purdy?
Yeah, I'm looking at Purdy. I'm also actually looking at Purdy. I'm looking at Love. I'm looking at Lawrence and Flacco. I like that. I like both those quarterbacks quite a bit. I like that game quite a bit too. So I feel like they're pretty good and meaningful savings away from kind of the Love Purdy kind of price range. So I'm considering, and this is such a good spot for Deshaun Watson. I'm not going to play him in cash games, but if I was playing a 3 max, I might put him in 1. because he's 5,300 and it's an absolutely smash spot. So I am considering Deshaun Watson, at least in like a single entry type field, probably not in cash.
I was playing a ton of Cooper. It's kind of like my way of playing Watson. So I don't know if that's I don't want to fully commit to Watson, but I think Cooper is just too cheap on both sides, both on FanDuel and DK. I'm going to be over the field. So yeah, I don't want to be too much on Watson. And Cooper lost that 70-yard touchdown last week due to like kind of a goofy hold, suspect hold. And maybe his ownership would be different. You know, if people see that one play. Yeah, I think he's dropped some passes too. He's not been very good. Neither is Watson, obviously. Like you said, there's several guys, right? It's several guys who are like, if it's not this week, then it's never going to be this week, right? And Watson's one of those. And Lawrence is another one. Lawrence has been a disaster. The team's been horrendous. His fantasy perspective has been awful. But like, I just kind of feel like, and I don't like to put those sort of never again stuff, but it certainly feels like if it's going to happen for Lawrence, it kind of has to happen today. It certainly feels like if it's going to happen for Watson, it should happen today at Washington. There's a couple other of those that just kind of lurking out there where it doesn't look great on paper. Javonte Williams is another one of those players. It's like, well, this seems like a really, really good spot for Javonte Williams, although he might be terrible. Yeah. Do you want to give like a quick little cash breakdown, Tim? Because, yeah, I'm running some quote-unquote optimals as well, too. I'm curious. You said 3 Packers. So you're okay playing. If you're not playing Love, you're okay playing 3 pass catchers? I don't know if I would.
So, like, I'm pretty sure, like, the optimal is going to show, like, Love and Reed, obviously, and then Wicks. Or Love, Reed, and Kraft, or something like that. But, I mean, I think you should start your cash games with Reed and Jordan Mason. Okay, you know, like those are your 2 foundational blocks, and then you add in Kraft at tight end. So maybe start with those 3, and then you can have kind of like debates about what you want to do at QB, what you want to do with your wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 spot. But I think it's definitely Reed, Mason, and Kraft. And then it's like, you know, I've had like a few people hit me up in my DMs already this morning asking about how many Packers can I play in cash, which is like kind of weird, you know, like already people are like already concerned about that. I just feel like it just doesn't end well when you go with 4. Like I don't know, it just doesn't feel right to load up on that. I almost feel like that would be a better play in like a single entry or 3 max or even a large field GPP to like just overstack this entire game and hope it goes crazy. But it doesn't feel super comfortable in cash games. But I mean, I'm starting off like my must plays in cash are Mason, Reed, and Kraft. That's what I'm starting off with right now.
So yeah, I ran some optimals. I did not add any juice to it, nothing like that. Didn't force anything. Didn't force any stacks. And yeah, Mason coming in at 100% on DK, Reed at 99%, Kraft 98%. For what it's worth, there's one other player that's coming in at 100%, and that is Pittman, which is pretty interesting. And he gets the boost, you know, with Richardson being out. I did not mention that, but Richardson was questionable, and I think he's officially ruled out. I know he was doubtful yesterday. I don't think he's officially been ruled out, but we're expecting him. Richardson was downgraded to doubtful, and Ingram was also downgraded to doubtful. Let's see. TJ wants us to know. He wants us to rank Johnson, Pittman, and Cooper. Yeah, that's a great question. That's probably an ownership thing. That's probably more of a Bobby question, but I guess you'll have a take on that as well. Tim, you want to fire that off before we throw it to Bobby? Cooper, Amari, we just talked about Pittman and Johnson. I think ownership-wise, it's going to be Pittman, Johnson, Cooper. Well, what is your take on those 3?
I would probably rank that Pittman, Cooper, Johnson. That's what I would do.
I have Johnson third in those 3.
Yeah, me too. I know the projections like Johnson quite a bit. They also like Pittman quite a bit as well, but I'm not really that high on Carolina today. Maybe that's the wrong take, but I don't really love Johnson.
I'm in agreement with you. Let's bring in Bobby. It's not that I'm refused to play Carolina, but I think that Chicago defense is pretty good. Yeah, Carolina's fine. They're on the road, but they're also a team that can certainly implode. And they're a team that like Chicago can beat theoretically like 27-10, and it wouldn't surprise any of us. Bobby, that question popped up. We're kind of bouncing around. That's sort of what we do.
I hate to say this, but I agree with the two of you also.
Pittman,
Cooper, and Johnson. It's unfortunate.
You like Pittman chalk? You're okay with Pittman being cheap? It looks like Pittman's going to be the most popular receiver.
I like Broadway Joe today, Dean. I like Broadway Joe. Broadway Joe Flacco.
So do I.
Yeah.
I like Flacco quite a bit today.
It's a good game environment, right? And he's really, really cheap. 5.5 on DK. I think he's like 6.8 on FanDuel. When you're playing Flacco, Bobby, is it just Pittman and Downs? Is there anybody else you're playing with him?
Oh, I want to play AD Mitchell so bad. I want to bet a touchdown prop for AD Mitchell. I think what's he getting? 36% of the snaps. He's not going to make
it. It's dropping.
It's dropping.
I think so. Don't quote me.
I know Pierce is drastically outsnapping him, but I just have a feeling. I have it like this feeling in my loins that he's going to get a touchdown today.
I thought you were going to say Plums. Like a shout out to our guy Butto. I don't know if he's lurking in chat, but Chop always shouts him out. Yeah, that certainly is an interesting game. But the first thing I did when I was running some builds and stuff, I X'd out Trey Sermon. Like I'm not playing Trey Sermon today. That seemed Bobby. Are you playing Trey Sermon? We should mention no Taylor and no JT. He's not playing football today.
Did the deep dive on Trey Sermon prior to the show, and I can go back to it. Yeah, Trey Sermon stinks. Don't play him.
That's what I was waiting for. How long did that take you to come to that conclusion? I know. And how long did that deep dive take you?
It was challenging, but the work says he stinks. The optimizer says he stinks.
I don't know if people are going to be playing him just because there's so many other options. And also they were really proactive on bumping up his price. By the way, his player comparable, according to Player Profiler, the player that's closest to him, Damian Harris, a player pretty well, Bobby, there in New England. So that is his comp. Does that get you less excited or more excited?
I thought Damian Harris was pretty good for a while. I just don't. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to play any Sermon.
I feel like they're rounding up too. I think Harris is better than Sermon, but they really baked up his price. He's not in the 4s; he's in the 5s, and we have the absence of Singletary for the Giants, so we have a really, really cheap running back. And Tracy, if we need a really, really cheap running back. Tim, we're not playing Sermon, right? I guess we should acknowledge
we're definitely not playing Sermon in cash. There's definitely a question to be had about not yet anywhere. I completely agree with Bobby's hard work there, breaking that down. So, but yeah, so I'm fine with not playing Sermon. I think the bigger question is what to do with Tyrone Tracy in cash games or otherwise. I don't think we got a couple questions in chat about is Tracy a cash game play. I actually don't think so. I think that the opportunity cost at running back is just so high. They're 7-point road dogs. I expect guys like Wan'Dale Robinson to get peppered with short A-dot targets. Perhaps Slayton, perhaps even like Theo Johnson is a decent play, but I understand that he opens up a lot of stuff. I just don't think you need a lot of stuff to open up on the slate and cash games. So it's like I don't currently have Tracy in my cash game team.
On FanDuel, you can get to some interesting builds where you can actually get the quote unquote 3 best running backs, I think. And salary is a little bit easier to make things work. Of course, you can't get all the way up as far as the top receivers, but I was getting I have some builds with Kyron, Mason, and Walker. I feel like I'm missing somebody too. Henry's kind of the one that's kind of the odd man out for me. I'm not against it, but he's the trickiest one for me to get to. I'm curious if you guys, I guess we'll kind of, obviously Henry can break those 80-yard touchdowns. It can be trouble for sure. And the Cincinnati defense does not look particularly solid, but he's the one I'm most afraid of. Oh, wait, did you touch on this, Tim? I think you did. It's a 3 running back day, right? In cash, it's not even a conversation. 3 running backs. What do you think it's a conversation?
Actually, the very first optimal that comes up when I ran it, it's 4 wide receivers because it's not giving you Tracy. So it's giving you a lot of those Packer wide receivers there. So I'm not saying I agree with that necessarily because there is a lot to love at running back. I likely am going to be playing 3 running backs in cash because we've got Kyron, we've got Mason, we've got Walker. I suppose you could play Tracy if you really want to. I personally don't really love that. You could.
What does it get you?
Right.
I like Tracy. I think I would consider Tracy in cash if I was playing cash, but this might be the reason I don't play cash games.
What about Alexander Madison? Just in general, Bobby.
Yeah.
So
I'm seeing a lot of different projections on him across the industry. A lot of differences in his projection.
So currently, I'm playing Madison, and I don't love it. Denver's D's been really good, but he is cheap, and I think I'm going the cheap running back route a lot this week.
Is that leading you to?
I wouldn't play him in cash. I think I'd rather play. I think Tracy's like game script dependent versus Seattle. You're taking away a guy. So Tracy was a wide receiver in college, correct? And then he transitioned to a running back.
Yeah.
And like, would you like Wandale and Slayton? They're gonna pop. They're not gonna be like cash game plays, but they're gonna pop in projections because you're removing a 30% target share. Like, why can't it be Tracy, who's likely gonna be like he can, if the game goes away from them, he's still gonna be in the game. And then if they're winning the game somehow, I know that's not what the line indicates, but he's going to get a lot of usage there. I just think I would rather roster a guy like Tracy than any of those pass catchers for sure.
So you'd rather go down to Tracy than go up to say Madison or DeAndre Swift in the 5K range.
Yeah. So is this going to be like the Swift thing? I wonder if this is going to be, you know how Whittington last week, like he kind of worked into that like Cooper Kupp role that everyone was saying he was going to get the week prior. Is this going to be the Roscoe Johnson week for like the Bears where they actually utilize him like near the goal? Well, Swift isn't getting the ball near the goal line anyway. So like, I don't know. I think Swift seemed like bad chalk.
Yeah, Johnson did snipe a TD from Swift last week. I don't know if it's going to be like a thing, but Swift also had an amazing game. And this Carolina defense is even thinner than they normally are. So with like huge injuries, I think, to that middle linebacker.
You want me to do the deep dive on Swift too?
Yeah.
Do you have time to do that? You have time to do that on the
It's similar.
You have time, Bobby, to do that?
I can check. Yeah. So DeAndre,
you check back in like 10 minutes or so, or how long is that going to take you?
It'll be quick. He stinks. DeAndre Swift.
No, I don't agree with that. I don't.
He's not a good play. He's not a good player. When was the last time he had 100 yards and 2 touchdowns?
But he's 5'7". I don't need him to necessarily do that. He had 23 touches last game, Bobby.
Yeah.
Home favorite.
Right. They rode the hot hand. He had that long, was it a pass? He was utilizing the passing game a bunch, right, too?
Also, Herbert got kicked out. I think it's worth noting. Herbert was given the boot.
I don't know how they kicked out Herbert. He's the best running back on the team.
Well, they don't think that. I think he's talented too. I think that's a weird one as well, but I don't know if he's going to jump back in. But it's just, if that's the case, there's just one less person to divvy it up. And I think it was important to note, you were talking about the Giants situation. Yeah, probably, I don't want to say Tracy's game script proof. I think he is. But, you never really know what kind of role they have for Gray. I don't know how much they're going to give to him. But, I think Tracy is going to be the guy catching passes if they're behind. And like you said, if they're ahead, he's probably going to be running the ball as well. Dump offs for Tracy, dump offs for Wandale Robinson, all the 4-yard routes for Route Wandale. Even Theo Johnson's kind of interesting. I'm not really getting the Giants, but you can see some cheap players at least getting some catches there for New York. Bodyguard saying Javonte Williams 5,200 for cash. I just don't think it's like Tim is. It just doesn't fit the bill. He can be fine, and I think he's fine in the old vacuum in the Hoover, but it just doesn't really make sense as far as the cash game build. And you were talking about it.
You make the same argument for Javonte Williams that the whole industry is making for Swift. Just throwing it out there. They literally both had their best weeks last week, and now they're both running backs that we have to consider, and the majority of the industry is going to go to Swift.
I would say,
and they both stink. They you can do the deep dive on both of them too. They both stink too.
Wait, you did a deep dive on Javonte Williams as well?
I'd rather play Alexander Madison than both Swift and Javonte.
I think I might rather do that too, and I don't know why. But I
disagree with both you guys, and I don't agree.
You'd rather go Swifting?
I would have Madison third amongst those three. I don't really love any of them, to be clear. I think they're all fine. They're all kind of in the pool. But I like paying up for the running backs today.
So you want to go three kind of like higher end RBs is what you're saying. You want to go Mason, Kyron, and Walker.
If I'm playing a cash game lineup today, yes, that's the three I want to bring the team. I want to come at you with 75 touches. Now come get me. 75 touches in a good spot. Come get me. Chase me down. And you might chase me down with Chase because I can't afford Chase. What do you got, TJ?
Dub K123 bringing up an interesting point in chat. He likes Antonio Gibson better than that whole 5K tier. What do you guys think about Gibson in comparison?
That's what I'm saying. When you're paying, I get for cash games, you can pay up, but there's a ton of opportunity costs at running back. And I think a lot of these like higher end running backs, they like Walker, Kyron, like you can play all these guys. They're great. But I think that if you hit on the right low-owned backs, you hit on these cheap guys, then you're going to be in a good spot.
Bobby, you got your finger on the pulse there in New England. Is this kind of nonsense, right? The bench.
So I think it's nonsense, and I think it had a lot to do with like local media and the radio station. I was listening to the Sports Hub. I think it was like Tuesday, and they're complaining that Stevenson hasn't been benched and Belichick wouldn't bench him, and then like the next day they bench him because they obviously heard the same complaints. I think Stevenson. Like you have to figure their offensive line's very young. It's not very good. He's fighting for every extra yard that he can get. He's had fumbling issues. They probably should have benched him after the second one, I would imagine. Let him in there because he's grinding it out, trying to play hard. I don't know. I feel like it's just like.
So I mean, Gibson's really a fake starter, is what you're saying.
I think Gibson's a fake starter. Yeah,
that's. He might turn into a hot hand situation. I think it's a fake starter too, and. Like the other thing, 4 consecutive games he's fumbled. I think only 2 times he's lost a fumble. I was in the Pick Six show, and Rebar said he's like, I can't remember which one was 1, which one was 2, but both those guys are 1-2 as far as fumbling. Gibson also has fumble issues, so it's like they're like guys, the fumbleitis.
The big thing is Belichick would have benched him, and that's why he's sitting.
Well,
that's
not there anymore.
That's what the beef is. It seems like.
Which, by the way, not to say that Belichick is a dope, but like. The players aren't intentionally trying to fumble the ball. I always that was like the dumbest philosophy of like, let's bench our best player because he fumbled. He didn't do it on purpose.
He didn't do it on purpose. He's literally the best player on the team. You're going to bench him.
I don't understand that.
You can't do anything on offense, but you have to bench your best player because he fumbled.
You got to teach him a lesson. Let him sit in the corner
to throw multiple interceptions.
Yeah, well, no, that doesn't work. It's a good point, but that doesn't work. Speaking of, by the way, TJ's telling us that Darnold is hurt in London. Mullins is in.
Nope, Darnold's back.
He's already back. He's already back.
Yeah. Well, TJ, it's hitting the fire.
You have to keep strolling, Dean.
Well,
you're too far behind in chat.
Now I'm seeing it. Okay, yeah. Well, I'm reading about this a game streaming. We're gonna get a free game streaming. Tell me 77 times, please, if you don't mind. I didn't catch it the first 76 times as you're spamming the chat. Yeah. So is that? Do we have anything? Did anybody bet anything in that game out of curiosity? I didn't do anything with it. The Jets in Minnesota. You guys have anything there?
I don't have anything.
Showdown.
Playing till like last night, and my buddy was like, "You're playing Showdown at 9:30 a.m."
There's another one next week in London. It's Jacksonville, which is basically like the home team in London. They're always in London.
Guess what they won't be doing in London next week or this week?
Jacksonville.
Guess what the people in London won't be doing?
I don't know.
Playing DraftKings. Can't play DraftKings in London anymore.
Oh yeah, that's right. What a bummer. Yeah, I didn't really dig into the specifics of it, but I did see that come up. Yeah, that's.
I don't get it.
I assume it's a business decision and hasn't. I don't know. I didn't really dig into it, but now I didn't do the deep dive like you did with your running backs, but that does stink. That's definitely a bummer. And hopefully there's some alternatives that pop up there. But yeah, that's not good. All right. But let's just finish up the cash game conversation, Tim, and we're gonna circle back and do our favorite quarterbacks, receivers, running backs, the whole deal. Chat, if you guys have anything specific, we're happy to assuming it's into the broad conversation, we'll hit it. TJ will throw them on the screen as well. But you kind of touched on this as far as the cash game build. You have to play craft, basically. I don't want to say you have to, but you kind of have to on DK. Defense, I think it's Patriots or Broncos, depending on what salary you have. I think it's one of those two.
I will tell you, Dean, that if you go the 3 premium running backs like you wanted to do, it leaves you with the Cardinals D. It leaves you with Deshaun Watson. Okay. I'm not going to say like the entire lineup here, but I mean, it's kind of like it leaves you with this kind of like this kind of, I think kind of weak stuff here. So that's my only issue with going to those 3 studs. Not saying that you're wrong, not saying that you can't do that, but I don't love that.
Do you think that everyone can play Swift and Cash?
No,
majority.
No.
I don't
they're
think
gonna
so.
go down. They're gonna go down to Tracy. I know that the Blitz loves Madison, so if you're using the Blitz loves Madison. So yeah,
I did a bunch of different stuff, and I ended up getting a lot of Madison. So yeah, I don't know. I think Madison's probably someone I'm playing.
Yeah, it really depends. There's a lot of differences depending on the projection source that you use this week.
I did notice that as well with Madison. By the way, I went to playerprofiler.com. Again, I was curious. You're talking about your deep dive of DeAndre Swift, and I was really surprised. Their best comparable, Bobby, to Swift, Maurice Jones-Drew. Like, that's very flattering. MJD? He was a thing back in the day.
I'm a little worried about like the player comparisons. They're not doing the proper deep dives.
Well, they're basing it off like the cone drill, of course. I don't know exactly what they base it off of. 40-yard dash, speed score, that kind of stuff. I'm not sure if the cone drill is involved in any way, but yeah. Are you a big cone drill guy, Bobby?
Edelman was a big 3-cone drill guy. That's how he got in the NFL.
There you go. The cone truthers. Looks like a pick 6 there in London, according to the chat. I don't know who threw the football, but somebody got pick 6.
Did you know that Brock Purdy has the fastest 20-yard shuttle on the San Francisco 49ers? Did you know that?
Amongst all players on San Fran?
Amongst all players, yeah. Like
I did not know that.
Faster than McCaffrey and Debo. I seen it on Instagram. Must be true.
That's yeah. I mean, that's I didn't know that. Purdy is somebody that I like a fair bit today. I believe they had the biggest team total on the board at 28. I'm pretty sure no team has got a higher total. Green Bay's at 26. We talked about 11 games on FanDuel. Just should acknowledge FanDuel is including Pittsburgh and Dallas. There are a few good plays there. Harris is he's another guy that looks really, really well positioned with their 2 other running backs down. Their next man up after Harris is a dude named Aaron Shampkin and Jonathan Ward. Fields is certainly in play on FanDuel as well. Lamb, of course, you can always play Lamb for sure. And I think Ferguson is actually one of the best dollar for dollar plays in Dallas. They did lose Brandon Cooks, who's going to be out for at least 4 weeks. He hit IR. Tolbert gets a little bit of a bump as well if you want to be ambitious there, but just want to acknowledge that game also going on. Anything else you want to say, Tim, as far as cash games? Are you still kind of bouncing back and forth? You have a 2v2, a 3v3, or have you have you kind of locked into your thoughts?
I'm struggling at quarterback the most. That's what I'm really getting hung up with. Whether I want to go Love, Purdy, or Flacco. That's kind of where I'm kind of struggling the most. Definitely going Mason, Kraft, Reed, and Pittman. I would say that's a good solid 4. I don't really like how a lot of the optimizer stuff across multiple projection sources are like giving you Cardinals D and Panthers D. Like, I don't really want to play either one of those defenses. I know that defense can be like highly variant, but I just don't want to play either one of those really, really cheap defenses.
I like the Panthers D for what it's worth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're gonna be very popular.
Are they really?
For a terrible unit, they are going to be pretty popular.
That's the only thing I would say, Bobby, is that they're going to be the second highest owned defense behind the Broncos.
But imagine if people had anticipated that others were going to play DeAndre Swift chalk and Caleb Williams. Actually, no one's playing Caleb, but
no one's playing Caleb.
No. Yeah. Rob wants to know you can play Purdy and Mason in cash. I actually don't think that's a terrible idea. Like, I don't think it's a negative necessarily because you're just locking up like all the touchdowns for San Fran. You want to get 4 or 5 touchdowns, right? Take Mason and then take Purdy.
I have no issue. I have no issue with that at all. They have a 28-point implied team total. Like, you should be getting exposure to all the TDs if you go Purdy. I'm highly considering Purdy right now.
Purdy is like the obvious cap game quarterback, correct?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think Jordan Love is there too, Bobby. And Purdy. I think those are probably going to be the two most popular.
When you roster Love, you immediately have to go into that awful Packers decision point of how many you can play at once.
True. I mean, he would be the first one to get off of.
You should only play 2 Packers pass catchers in cash games. Is that wrong to say?
No, I don't think that's wrong to say. I would just go Reed. I would go Reed and Kraft.
See, I'm the opposite. I would go Wicks and Kraft.
Reed's going to be the highest owned player in cash, except for maybe Jordan Mason and Kraft.
In tournaments, I'm going to do something I rarely do. I rarely roster triples, but I think I'm going to
do some triples. Yeah, you got to do some triples in tournaments.
Dean, if I'm doing a quad, that means you should be doing a triple.
Are you doing quad Green Bay or somewhere or other places?
Yeah,
as well?
I have a team with Love, Wicks, Reed, Kraft, Melton.
Oh yeah,
but,
I mean,
wow.
But what I was gonna say is,
and Kyron there.
In that one, yeah. And I actually don't think the answer for what you should do in a cash game is Kraft and one of the 2 receivers. I think the answer should not be Kraft. I think it's a bit of an overreaction to last week, and I think somebody like Brenton Strange is exactly, since Ingram is going to be out, is exactly the same play as Tucker Kraft. But I mean, obviously you don't care about the ownership in cash. Obviously you don't care about the ownership in cash, but are we really worried about Tucker Kraft beating us today? Wicks and Reed both could be guys that have 100+ yards and a couple touchdowns. Tucker Kraft, are we really scared he's going to be the one to beat us? I feel like Brenton Strange or Kobe Parkinson or.
There's the block though, right? You kind of just play him just the block. I don't know if you believe in that theory, Tim.
I do.
But you're getting that exact same. You're getting that same, like not maybe as much blocking, but still some blocking and a lot more upside with Wicks and Reed.
Oh man, yeah, I'm excited about Green Bay. Maybe I'm too excited about it, and Bobby is already kind of besmirching it, but I get it because I don't like, as a general rule, I do not like a very popular quarterback that can't move. I shouldn't say can't move, but it's not going to break the slate with his legs. Like Love's not going to. He really can't scoop for 50 and 2 touchdowns. It's like not something he's going to do. So maybe I'll back off a little bit, but I do like Love, of course, in that game against the Rams. Biggest total on the board in the dome. There's really cheap run backs too for the Rams. Whittingham. Are you getting one of those 2 for cash as like the cheap receiver, Tim? Do you need a Whittingham?
Yeah, Whittington. I'm getting to a lot of him in optimals. I mean, hopefully he takes that cup role. No guarantees, obviously, but I mean he's really popping across the industry. He's going to be very, very popular in cash games today. He's probably going to be in my cash game lineup, but I'm a little bit nervous about that one.
Bobby, I'm just curious. Do you like? I think Atwell is an awesome tournament pivot.
Yeah,
just a little bit more, and he's also like more of the home run hitter. If you look at the ADOT stuff on Whittington, like it's all short stuff, right? He can get 7 or 8 catches, but Atwell's the guy that can break a 70-yarder. So you pay a little bit more, in the ownership game, I think he's really an interesting pivot. I'm trying to force myself to take Atwell.
I think he's a fine pivot off of Whittington.
You don't love it. You don't have to love it. It
I
doesn't sound like you love it.
I think the guy I like in the cheap range is going right back to Trey Tucker from last week. Versus Denver. I think that's the most interesting 4,100. Just get back to Trey Tucker. I do wonder who Surtain plays if he shadows Jacoby. It's probably beneficial to a guy. I also think Tucker's just like good at football.
Would they put Surtain on Bowers? Did they just say like Bowers is their best receiver? Is that something they do? I don't know.
I feel like that's I don't know. I don't even know if he's going to shadow like he has been shadowing, but I don't think that any of these receivers really warrant a shadow.
All right. By the way, worth noting is
Bowers would be the best candidate, right?
Yeah, I just don't know if that's how they would. I don't know the defensive schemes. That's not my hand's not in the dirt and that kind of thing. And I'm not going to pretend to know.
I don't know that either, though. I have no idea.
So we didn't mention any like the best quarterbacks, which I think is kind of a Bobby conversation for tournaments. Lamar is really not going to be that heavily owned, I don't think. Josh Allen's going to be less owned. Buffalo, Houston in a dome, that could be a shootout for sure. Baltimore, Cincy. We've seen Cincinnati be in at least one shootout this year. Their defense is horrific, and they have to keep up with Baltimore. So that game could be fun. Jaden Daniels against the Cleveland team. Their defense is supposed to be good, but I think it's been a little bit uneven this year. And, Washington's supposed to give up some points, so that is another game that could potentially shoot out. How do we feel about spending up to be different as far as quarterbacks, Bobby? You said you had 6-ish quarterbacks. Is Lamar popping up for you? Daniels, another guy. Cleveland's going to pressure him. He's going to be running. He's going to be scrambling. This is a spot where he can break big yards on the ground and not even thinking about the stuff they're designing for him. Your thoughts as far as pivoting to the big spends at quarterback that I think for the most part, they just don't really work, optimizing wise. You have to kind of force it.
Yeah, I liked CJ Stroud and Lamar more yesterday, and then I've been just kind of condensing down. Joe Burrow and Kyler would probably be actually Jaden Daniels is at 6,800. The highest I would go is Jaden Daniels, then Kyler at 67, and Burrow at 64. I do really like Burrow on the slate. I really like the Baltimore Cincinnati game in general. But yeah, I should probably try to get up to Lamar. It's just tough, but I do like the running backs that are cheap. So maybe I could add in Lamar. I think if I did add one in, he'd probably be like my 7th.
If you're not playing Lamar, you're playing Cincy. Are you playing Henry on the other side most likely?
Henry or Zay Flowers. I really like Zay Flowers this week. Yeah, I think Henry's a good play. Like, obviously, everyone seen what he can do or knows what he can do. I think Zay Flowers is the interesting one. I also think with the tight end position, that's terrible. In larger field stuff, you can play Isaiah Likely. I think he's going to make my player pool. But I love Burrow. I love Chase. I love Higgins. I love the tight ends in Cincinnati, Eric All.
Who's your favorite? You like all over Gesicki?
I like all over Gesicki, but I'm going to be playing all these Cincinnati pass catchers, so I think they're all viable.
Tim, tournament stuff, 3-entry max, single entry. I know you kind of threw a couple of quarterbacks out there. Are you thinking about any of these big spends? They just kind of make the build a little bit trickier, like a Josh Allen type or Lamar. Stroud was mentioned, Daniels. Nobody's going to play Kyler today. We've been playing. He's been bad. He's had like one good game. He's been terrible otherwise.
Kyler killed me last week. I can't do it this week. He crushed me.
Oh, that's the worst mentality, Tim. You know that. You can't do that.
I know.
You gotta be a goldfish, man.
I'm still going to though, Dean. Okay, I'm still going to, even though you're not supposed to. Yeah, I mean this Cincinnati Baltimore game it should be pretty great for DFS production. The problem is that they're so expensive, so it's going to be kind of hard to play this game. But I mean, I wouldn't mind getting to some Lamar, Zay Flower stacks in large field. I wouldn't mind getting to some Derrick Henry and then running it back with like a Burrow, Chase, Gesicki, stack or something like that. This game should be really good. I don't think I'm going to be getting to any in 3 max. It's just, I don't know. It's tough. It's just like this is a situation where you would have to play like a couple of those cheap RBs, right? Like if you play this game, you have to go like Madison and Tracy or Javonte or like Jerome Ford or something like that to make that work. Because this game is extremely expensive. This Buffalo Houston game, I mean, isn't Tank Dell getting a lot of like squeaky wheel narrative type stuff this week? Like in the media,
not with
like,
Steph Diggs' revenge. Like Steph Diggs
that's a good point too. Yeah, I mean,
he wants every touchdown.
Right. So like Stroud
he better
doubles.
get them. He better get them. He's like
within the first 5 plays. If he doesn't score a touchdown, he's gonna be yelling.
He's gonna be yelling.
I mean, Nico's gonna be one of the highest owned wide receivers on the entire slate. I would say going to Diggs or Dell as leverage, I think would be a fantastic little stat that's going to go super, super low owned. I'm looking at Stroud's ownership right now, and that's going to be like practically nothing, right?
You can even add 10 acres to that, right?
4%.
Yeah, you could do an Allen. You could do an Allen stack, Bobby, with an Akers run back. You really want to?
I really like the Dell and Diggs pivots off Nico Collins. It's a horrible matchup for Nico. I know he's the best receiver in the NFL. I know he's fantastic, but it's just like Diggs is where you beat the Bills in the slot, and Dell has a squeaky wheel narrative. Cam Akers, my write-up that Dean poo-pooed, is also in the mix.
There's a write-up? I just saw the tag.
You didn't write anything, Bobby.
Yeah.
You didn't write
anything. It was the tag. I tagged it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I would have loved to have seen the actual written part of that research.
He had really nothing to say outside. Well, 2%.
You guys are laughing, but when Cam Akers breaks the slate today, come talk to me.
I'm gonna be logging off if that happens. By the way, the Allen stuff, I guess it's a broader conversation, but what are we doing as far as his pass catchers, right? Because the Curtis Samuel thing, is he done with the turf toe? Is he fine? Have they just been kind of like, it's been a slow climb? He's done nothing so far this year. Kincaid, I kind of like Kincaid this week, but it's not I don't know who to pair Allen with is kind of what I'm getting at. I think it's Kincaid, and I'm okay with Samuel. He's cheap enough, but I'm just concerned that like the turf toe thing is lingering. Does anybody have a thought on that? Your favorite pairing for Josh Allen?
I actually like Keon Coleman this week.
Yeah.
Like I think he really kind of came into his own in that second half last weekend. They've thrown him the back shoulder stuff, and it was tough for them to defend. The issue is like the way you beat. I don't know if they have like Samuel isn't a guy that wins over the top. Doesn't seem like Keon Coleman's going to win too much over the top. Maybe he will. Maybe they just all they have for Keon Coleman is the back shoulder. Kincaid's like a 5-yard ADOT. The guys that how you beat Houston is you beat them deep, and their deep guys are MVS and Mac Hollins. So that's why I worry with Allen is like because that deep dive is like very easy. I can on those guys, So
you could do it well on the show. Like
I can do it while I'm on the show. Yeah, I can do it.
But like several times.
What about Kincaid though, Bobby?
I like it.
He's fine. I like it. Like he'd be my favorite, I guess. Yeah, him, Cook, Keon, Curtis Samuel. The thing with Curtis Samuel is the upside to Curtis Samuel is that he might get touches out of the backfield too. Correct.
I mean, he needs them because he hasn't caught any balls basically the entire season. But like he had the
removing Shakir.
We kind of buried the lead with Shakir being out, and Samuel seems like the most logical guy to take his spot. His highest DK score in the season is 5 points. He's got 8 catches the entire year, and again, he had that injury, and I just don't know if it's just something he's managing, and they're not, they're just not going to let him play a ton.
Can I just say I just don't think Allen's a very very great is a very good play on the slate.
I mean, he's always playable, but as
he's playable,
this isn't his best week to play him. I think that's what you're saying. I feel like I agree with that. One more quarterback I want to mention, and it's been mentioned a couple times in chat. we haven't really talked about Geno. And is it just because we don't think that the Giants can push back? Is that the concern here? Because we're playing Purdy, and we think the Cardinals probably maybe can push back, but we've shown them getting blown out a couple times this year, at least once.
I like
Geno.
Concern that the Giants can't push back, but I also think it's the other part of that is the leverage Geno offers. Industry will say that Geno's leverage off Kenneth Walker. I don't know what to make of anything in this game outside of the fact that I think Tyrone Tracy is actually a good play.
Yeah, and I think I'm not as bold to say I'm going to have Walker or Metcalf in every one of my lineups, like one of those two. Like one of them's going to get there, but I don't think that's the worst thought to have. But be over on both individually, and they're not even the worst thing to even pair together if you're running Tracy back or if you're going Wan'Dale, that kind of thing. Even I'm not advocating, but tight end is such a wasteland. Theo Johnson's not the worst. You could do worse at 2.6K. Again, don't feel good about it, but hold your nose and you can click. Anything else, Tim, as far as quarterback? Did you have a thought on Geno? Anything else we should mention when it comes to quarterbacks, or otherwise we're going to move on and talk about some running backs?
I really like this Colts Jags game. I'll just say that. I really like Flacco. Don't mind Lawrence. They have really, really easy to play stacking partners, whether it be Pittman, Downs, Brian Thomas Jr., Christian Kirk, I think is interesting. Strange. This game should be played at a pretty decent pace as well. So I really like getting to a lot of this game. And I currently have a couple pieces of this game in my primary single entry team. So I really like this Colts Jags game.
I strongly agree.
It also allows you to get to the good running backs, right? You got the cheap quarterbacks and Lawrence and Flacco, and you have cheap to mid-tier pass catchers and Pittman, Downs, Kirk, Thomas, Strange. Yeah, it works out perfectly if you want to spend up for a couple running backs. And
I've got two quarterbacks, when I've got two quarterbacks in the mid fives, like in this game, yes, I'm giving up some of that ceiling from possibly a Purdy, possibly obviously Lamar and Allen, but I think I'm gaining it back with a ton of this really, really balanced build approach that you can get by stacking this game. So I mean, this game really, to me, outside of the obvious projections darling Packers game, is my favorite game on the entire slate.
All right, before we jump the running back, I do want to shout out Splash Sports. Bring your streak back with Splash Sports' electrifying week of contests, starting with the $250,000 second chance Survivor Revival alongside the 2K fantasy tiers, $2,000 against the spread pick'em. Now open in 34 states, Splash Sports. It's your go-to platform for peer-to-peer fantasy and betting contests. Go to the RotoGrinders experts at HTTP. Why am I saying that part? It's Splash. Nobody types that in this point, right? SplashSports.com/RotoGrinders. Again, SplashSports.com/RotoGrinders. We got a nice little promo code for y'all. Use the promo code ROTO10. Claim your $10 credit after signing up for your first contest. And with more on Splash Sports, we got Chop. Let's hear what Chop has to say.
What up, everybody? Chop here talking about Splash Sports for NFL Week 5. Let's get to some of the contests being offered. They've got the RotoGrinders 2K NFL against the spread locks Sunday at kickoff. Pick every game against the spread to win that one. RotoGrinders 2K NFL fantasy tiers locks on Sunday morning. Just pick one player from each tier. And then the big one this week is the Second Chance Survivor Pigskin Second Chance Survivor 250K prize pool locks on Sunday at kickoff. All you need to do is pick one team to win the game, period. Pick one team to win, you advance, you lose, you're out. This week I'm taking Seattle. It's a tough place to play. The Giants, I think, are probably average at best. I like the Seattle team at home. This week, I'm taking Seattle in my Survivor pick. Till next week, good luck. I'm Chop. I'm out of here.
Chop locking in.
Chop's enthusiasm on that read,
It felt like he was excited, not excited for a second, then excited again.
But then how many takes did it take him to do that? Is the question.
One take.
That's just one take? Okay. All right.
We'll have to ask TJ or Devin or producer Steve, whoever edited that, but I don't know. I think beer is like the best at that for the 6-pack. I feel like he just does that. You can wake up in the middle of the night at 3 o'clock in the morning, he can knock out the 6-pack for you. Okay. I'm going to talk running backs. Before I do that, I do want to mention the RotoGrinders Listener League. Let's shout out last week's winner. It's Rory Donahue. Took down the Listener League week 4. Do not forget to join it this week. RG's Listener League play alongside viewers as well as your favorite hosts. I'm in there as well. I'm not being presumptuous. I'm just saying I'm in there. You'll have a chance every single week to compete for first play. You didn't like that ad-lib, Tim?
No. You're so passive aggressive in so many different ways, Dean.
I said I wasn't implying. I would never presume. I'm just saying I'm in it. That's all. Are you in it, Tim, as well? Because maybe somebody's favorite host is in there. Are you in the Listener League this week?
No.
Feel free to.
I missed it. What did he do?
Did
he toot his own horn again?
No,
he did.
Not.
He did.
I may have finished top 10 in this league last week. Maybe. I may have. Squirrel was like top 5, I believe, and I'm pretty sure Rebar.
I think my show won that, didn't we?
I don't know.
Or we were up there.
No. Well, no, because I don't think so.
That team show, the team.
You might have had, Kirk Hughes might have been in the top 10. I'm not sure, but I know a lot of RG representation as far as hosts were in the top 10. But the point here is you can get yourself a month free of RotoGrinders Premium if you happen to join it. That's football, baseball, basketball, hockey, MMA, PGA, all the sports with the exception of NASCAR, all the bells, all the whistles, the projections, the articles, the optimizer, too many things to mention, and cannot put a price on it. If you happen to take it down next week, we will shout you out as the winner to the previous week. Go ahead and check out the link in the description for more details. Tim, we've already talked a lot about running backs. Is there any running backs that we've not yet discussed that you want to bring to the conversation? Probably more from a tournament perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it's really all about lineup build, right? I mean, it's like if you want to go expensive at quarterback, expensive at wide receiver, you're gonna have to punt with some of these cheap running backs like Tracy, like Swift, Javonte, Jerome Ford, Madison. Those are like there's tons of really playable, mid-range to cheap running backs on the slate. Obviously, your cash game guys are going to be Jordan Mason and one of Kyron or Kenneth, in my opinion. I'm not really sure what I'm going to be doing with Chuba Hubbard today. 6,100, kind of a strange spot. Like I know he's getting all the usage. I kind of rather go down a little bit or just go up to Walker. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to be doing with Hubbard. And then I think Josh Jacobs is a really, really interesting play because all these Green Bay pass catchers are going to be super, super chalky. So playing some Jacobs, I think, is an interesting GPP play. He's showing at 16% owned. I thought he'd be a little bit lower than that, but maybe I'm wrong.
I love Jacobs. He's probably one of my favorite tournament plays. He is one of my favorite tournament plays. I know earlier in the week on the Pick Six show at Rebar and Daigle, we were talking about that. Awesome pivot. We have Bobby making fun of us, kind of clowning us for liking all the pass catchers for Green Bay. So I assume, I don't want to be presumptuous, but Bobby, do you like Jacobs as well? It's kind of a tournament swerve.
I like Jacobs a little bit. It's weird. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think I'm going to be playing Alexander Madison. I know we said it a bunch at the top of the show. Don't love that, to be perfectly honest. Cam Akers. I think Cam Akers is an interesting tournament play. Also don't mind going back to one of the Patriots running backs, whether you think it's Antonio Gibson or Stevenson. I think they're interesting tournament plays. I think it's just going to be Stevenson, to be honest. Maybe Gibson gets a drive. They still utilize Gibson, though, anyways. So if you want to throw him in your player pool for large field stuff, I think that's fine. A guy that gets lost in the wash, I think, is Zach Moss at 6K. I like him.
You like him over Brown?
Yeah. Currently, I like him over Brown. Yeah.
Yeah. Just the split's kind of annoying, but I think it's he's still probably the top guy on Cincy.
I'm going to be under the field on DeAndre Swift, even though I keep getting him over the field. So maybe I should just play him. I just don't want to. Derrick Henry, I think, is a very good play. Like, I prefer, like, what are we talking? Henry 7,800. I think I prefer Henry to Kyren Williams. And I think he's in the same price range. I think I'll be under on Kyren. Kyren 7,600. He should be a lot more chalky than Henry. I would just rather have more Henry than Kyren.
I'm checking the ownership now. 20% Henry, 24%, 25% Kyren. And I wouldn't be surprised that's a little bit bigger gap.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a bigger gap.
Henry's a little bit more expensive. Allen's throwing out Achane. I just, this Miami offense, like, theoretically.
I don't hate that. Like, we're just down on Achane when we like this is when the industry moves off, we have to think about getting on. I like Achane. The Patriots have actually not been great versus the run. They're like best pass rusher, can't stop the run. So not that they really, I don't know how much Huntley's going to throw. I do think Huntley 2 weeks in the system should be better. Yeah, in theory. I like Huntley for whatever reason. So yeah, I don't know. I think Achane's fine.
Are you forcing somebody with Huntley? Or you might play him a la carte. Or you're going to pair him with like.
This brings back one of the most difficult decisions ever made in DFS. With Tyler Huntley in a live final where I played him with Rashad Bateman, and if I just played him with the Andrews team, I ship everything. And it's just so easy. You play him with Andrews. I just play him with Hill. Like, that's playing with Hill. Hill gets loose. You're in a good spot.
I was just going to ask TJ. I saw TJ was showing off some of the SimLabs stuff, and did you want to like kind of explain what we're looking at here, TJ? Can you give us a quick little tutorial as far as what we're looking at here in SimLabs? Is it possible?
I like Connor.
Absolutely. So this is the ownership projection compared to their optimal rates, how often they land in the optimal lineup. So even though he's the chalkiest running back on the slate, Jordan Mason is actually also the most under-owned running back on the slate, according to SimLabs. Alexander Madison right behind him, Antonio Gibson third, Henry fourth, Connor fifth, all the way down to the least, the most over-owned player on the slate, 11.76% more projected owned than his optimal rate, Trey Sermon. So that's what this rate is here. That's kind of what I look at far more than this stuff here, if I'm being honest.
No, is there one thing
where's Cam Akers on this?
Yeah, where's Cam Akers? Where's my guy Cam Akers?
I figured he'd be right at the top. I figured he'd be right at the top.
Cam Akers has a 1.98 optimal percentage and 1.7 ownership percentage. So he is going slightly under-owned.
He's going slightly
under-owned. Well done, Bobby. Well done.
Bobby Sharp. Yeah, you know this.
So I was thinking about this today. Like, I'm happy we actually did this because I feel like we have the Sims for subscribers, but you don't really go into like how to use them, you know?
Yeah, well, that's what TJ's. I know. During basketball season, we're gonna be talking about the Sims even more. Just kind of showing it off. I know Tim always runs it. I imagine Tim, you ran it. Did you see anything interesting that just kind of popped out to you? Because every once in a while, it's gonna surprise you with some of the names it shows.
I was glad that TJ pointed out that Jordan Mason is in fact going under-owned. I think that's an important thing. People are so scared of chalk, but sometimes chalk is good. And so when you see chalk going under-owned, it's good to take note of that. I'm surprised about the Gibson thing. I did not see that coming at all. Definitely a lot more bearish on Gibson than those projections, but hey, they're there for a reason. I love that Derrick Henry is showing up as positive leverage because I do love that game. Really kind of, I don't know. I really don't know what to do with that game. That Bengals-Ravens game is super interesting to me. So, I mean, I'm glad to see that Derrick Henry's getting, he's going to be some positive leverage. I just don't really, I think there should be a bring back in that game, in that spot. Like, say Henry, just crushes. Like, Burrow's going to have to throw to his pass catchers. So, it's just really hard.
I love
Chase Higgins, one of the tight ends.
I know, but it just, I feel like it's got to be Chase, though. So if you go Burrow, Chase, Henry, it's very, very
a lot of salary.
I think it could be Higgins. I think it could be Higgins too. Higgins was worked right along in that offense last weekend. So mine Higgins.
By the way, just as far as like a construction thing, I thought it was really interesting in the slate that the best teams, if you just like say the best teams, the most popular teams, most of them are playing at 4:00. We have a 6-4 split, 6 early, 4 late. We have San Fran at 4:00. We have Green Bay at 4:00. We have Seattle at 4:00. We got the Rams, the cheap receivers. We got the cheap stuff for the Giants at 4:00. We have Madison. We have Williams. The 4:00, you could have a lineup with just 4:00 players, and you're probably not supposed to do that because like you kind of like, not to say you can't, but you like to sort of like play the results. TJ, what do you got?
I just ran a low results range, 150 large field contest set of sims, and T. Higgins is in the highest projected lineup that it gave us.
There you go.
It's amazing how I'm right.
Which it is kind of weird, admittedly. Like this is something. So I guess in terms of talking through the sims, looking at this, the very first thing I would do after seeing this first build set would be I would increase the correlation numbers in my next sim, because looking at this, I see but T. Higgins and Michael Pittman are both exactly 6K. Well, on this team, it has Derrick Henry, but it has Michael Pittman as the 6K player, and this one has T. Higgins. I would personally just either use this and then swap those two players to get that correlation, Higgins and Henry together, and then Pittman on the other team, or I'd go to the advanced setting in SimLabs, make sure that I get, right now the correlation set is very low. I'd try and bump it up to something like a low or a medium, get a little bit more of it, and try it again. So I think that's an important thing to look at when you're doing your SimLab stuffs as well. Your first sim does not have to be the set of lineups that you're playing. You can adjust it based on if you like your settings.
Yeah, and stuff changes too the closer we get to lock as well, as far as the set or projections and all that. So try to do that the closest to lock if possible. And do want to mention, if you like the sim stuff, right? Combo Lite, RG Combo Lite. It's our newest product, gives you the power of simulation for a fraction of the price of other tools. Some competitors would charge hundreds a month for a sim product. Combo Lite, just $39 and change. It includes SimLabs, the lineup building tool, plus content from some of your favorite DFS analysts. Combo Lite does not limit you to one sport either. It includes SimLabs, access for the 4 most popular sports. That's baseball, MLB, NFL, NBA, and PGA. You will not find a better, more cost-effective option anywhere else. Do check out the link for, the description. Find out more if you want to learn about Combo Lite, which is brand new. Tim, I see you're knocking out a bunch of questions in chat. So I was going to circle back to the questions in chat, but you're just all over it. Shout out to you for multitasking. Bobby's, he's researching running backs, multitasking in the show. And you're, Tim, you're answering the questions for the people. Everything is being covered. Let's talk about some, unless there's anything else we want to talk about as far as running backs. Again, we've kind of talked about it throughout the entire slate. And if something specific comes up, by all means, we're happy to answer that. We're here for the next 20 minutes or so. And then we bring in Squirrel Patrol, Neil, Erik, Will, and TJ, like closing things out, taking you guys all up to lock. Again, 3.5 hours nonstop content. Do you want to open up receivers, Bobby? We've kind of talked about it, but receiving wise, who do we want to focus on for tournaments today?
I really like Pittman, Downs. I'm with Tim. I think that's a really good game just to target. McLaurin, I like a good bit. Stephon Diggs. I'm on Trey Tucker as my cheapie. I think Trey Tucker is my cheapie. More than 4,100. I just think he's a quality pivot off of all the chalk guys. I'm still playing a good bit of the chalk guys, but I think from a tournament perspective, he's just someone to throw out there. Amari Cooper, like him. I'm going to be under on Nico Collins. Jamar Chase would be my favorite spend. I would rather play Diggs and Dell than Nico. I'm still playing Nico, but I understand Nico's the cash game guy, but I think Chase and Debo are guys I'd rather have on the higher end in tournaments.
I like Debo a lot as well, and I'm not sure if people are gonna. I guess they're gonna get to him to some degree, but I think he's gonna be a little less popular, like you said. Let's just actually confirm. Let's see where we're at. As far as Reed's gonna be 26%. Collins at 20. Where's 18% on DK? This is as of 10. So again, this stuff can change. Still some actives and inactives coming in about 50 minutes or so. I don't think we have any like news that we're really. A lot of the stuff is kind of assumed. Ingram probably out. We know Dobbs got suspended. McBride expected to play. Kittle expected to play. Robinson for the running back for Washington expected to play. Most of the things are pretty well settled. Yeah, you threw out a couple of my favorite receivers. I do agree with you on Cooper, as much as I don't like to be attached to that Cleveland offense. Yeah, you were talking about a cheapie, Bobby. I mean, I don't know. Melton is one of my favorite cheapies at 7%, 3.3K. I think he's legit talented, and if he was on a different team, he would be a number 2 receiver or possibly number 3 receiver. He's just stuck behind the best receiving core in football, the deepest receiving core in football. I should say deepest. Maybe I shouldn't say best, but it's only the deepest and the youngest as well. But yeah, I think Melton's like a good player, and he's going to have his chances out there today with all the injuries and suspensions, and a good matchup too. So that is my favorite cheapie. Saves you some extra salary. And if you want to be really, really goofy, like 1 in 150 style, like Malik Heath is not completely bonkers, but I like Melton more than Heath.
I think they're both really good ways to differentiate like Jordan Love if you're playing him in tournaments, because a lot of these Love teams are going to look the same, right?
What about Mac Hollins, who's projected better than Bo Melton?
Yeah, I just think I know better on that one, but I mean that maybe I don't. I think Matt Hollins is a really, really interesting MME play. He's on the field, he runs routes, but like he doesn't get the ball thrown his way, but he's out there doing the old wind sprints, right?
Yep.
I have a question. Do you guys have any love for Marvin Harrison or not versus San Fran?
It would have to be, I think, in a really, really large field set for me.
Yeah,
he would not reach my first 20 lineups.
Yeah.
Really hard to play in like a single entry or 3 entry max contest. It's like really, really hard to do. Ballsy, super ballsy. I think I'd rather play McBride. If I'm going to play a run back for Arizona, it's McBride.
Do we have clarification on Fred Warner? Is he in?
He's expected to play, which is kind of the bummer. Yeah, he's one of the best, linebackers or whatever. He's a linebacker. I think he's a linebacker. Defensive players, and probably would get matched up with McBride on occasion, if not more so than not, which isn't ideal. But, it's also tight end. And what do you have to do to separate yourself from the rest of these guys? So, it's kind of a push-pull. But I'm fine with McBride.
There's a question in chat that I'd like, both your guys' opinions on. Thoughts on Debo as an alternate play over Mason? He does get rushing attempts.
I like it.
Different. Yeah, I like it too.
I tend to think that it's a good way to think about it, but I also think that like we've seen with the Sims that Mason is a guy you want to play as well. So it's also a shorter slate. Like it's not a 14-game slate. It's a 10-game slate. We're incorporating buys now, so there's less outs. I think you can I like San Fran's just a good team in general. You could look at them as a leverage, as Debo is leverage, but I wouldn't overthink it. They're both great plays. You play both of them together too.
Is it too much to like play them both in the same lineup, like Purdy, Mason,
I can actually detect the correlation. Hold on.
Like they both can get there, right? They just cost a lot, obviously, but there is plenty of ways to get cheap. Is that something we can do, Bobby? If we play Mason and Debo in the same lineup? I think we can.
There's a slight negative correlation, but it's nothing like impactful. So I think you could play the two of them together, no problem.
It's another week where it's like I'm looking at talk about several players that like guys I pretty much never play. I shouldn't say never, but don't gravitate to. But I see Don Yeezy in chat talking about Cortland Sutton. If you look at the air yard stuff, he's one of the league leaders in air yards. I know.
Yeah.
He's really cheap, and I'm not afraid of Vegas. I like Cortland Sutton, which is like not a thing I like saying out loud, but I do. What do you got?
I know we're on receiver, but just kind of on the note of San Francisco, it's like what Tim brought up earlier. Just because something is chalk doesn't make it bad chalk. I think it's worth noting that like there's been a lot of conversation in chat about like you got to pivot off of Mason. He's too chalky. Brock Purdy makes for great leverage today off of the Jordan Mason stuff. Well, Brock Purdy's currently the most over-owned quarterback according to our optimal rate tool. Pardon me, let me pull this back up on in the screen share here. Purdy's currently the most over-owned quarterback on the entire slate. He's projected to be, according to our projections, he's currently projected for 12.1% ownership when he is only have a 7.5% optimal rate. Whereas even though Jordan Mason has a 35% ownership, he's still the highest difference between optimal rate and ownership projection among every single running back on the whole slate.
Can I point this out? This is actually saying Kenneth Walker and Kyron Williams are probably the guys you should be under on, other than
they're
Mason.
both really good plays today.
And they're both really good plays. And what I would say is I would just trust what the Sims are giving you. Like if they're telling you Mason, play Mason and go under on those two.
The other thing I would add, again, to what TJ's saying, I don't like playing quarterbacks that are really popular as a general rule and that can't move. And Love and Birdie are quarterbacks that can't move, and their one route is 303. Now, they certainly can do this. They're probably the two most likely quarterbacks to put up 303, but they have to. They basically have to because they're not getting there any other way. Tim, anything else you see in chats? Oh, by the way, Flacco or Lawrence, Chris is asking. You said you like that game. Have you figured out which route you're starting with? You like both, right?
I like both of them a ton. I'm siding with Flacco, but I think that game environment is going to be great for fantasy points. I love that game.
Are the Vikings like shutting the Jets out? According to the chat, they just keep clowning on the Jets. Is it a disaster there in London? What's happening in that game? 17-0. Yeah, it's 17-0. 2 minutes. 2 minute warning right now. Minnesota up.
I'm
so mad I didn't bet the Jets.
That feed is getting
total.
hot for Salah, I must say.
CJ Ham. I don't know who played the Showdown slate, but CJ Ham scored a touchdown and a Minnesota defensive touchdown. Good Lord.
Aaron Jones got hurt and is questionable to return. So
wow.
That's where Ham got in.
If you like variance, you must love this Showdown. It's probably going to be like the winner, the optimal is going to be like 5,000 short of salary. But yeah, hopefully you guys didn't play the Jets. But apparently Rodgers just took a big hit as well.
Our best ball team has Breece Hall, Dean. We're struggling right now.
Oh boy, it's been we've
been doing good for our best player not doing anything for.
Breece Hall and Braylon Allen with a combined 6 carries for 5 yards in this one.
It's tough scene. It's not good.
3 each.
Tight ends. Let's talk about some tight ends. It's going to be really, really popular. We kind of talked about it several times. Back to Green Bay. Just too cheap, and the role is too good, and the matchup is too good for Tucker Kraft. We're assuming Musgrave is going to be out. Not officially ruled out, far as I can tell. There are some pivots. Bowers looks interesting for the Raiders. Kittle, always a big variance, and probably not going to be that owned. We're seeing 5-6% for Kittle. You got to pay for it, obviously. People aren't going to be playing. Kincaid's going to get some ownership there in Buffalo. The absence of Shakir, but McBride's going to be like 3 or 4% bad matchup. But again, the upside theoretically, the Andrews thing. I don't care how cheap they make him, 4K. Like at this point, I kind of have to see it. They're just not even playing him. It's really, really weird what's happening there in Baltimore. But yeah, Tim, give us your thoughts as far as tight ends for tournaments.
Yeah, for tournaments, I think Kobe Parkinson is going to be decent leverage off of Kraft. Then after that, I would go Brenton Strange at 3-2. He's going to be about 5% owned. After those value plays, I'd go up to Dalton Kincaid. He should be around, I guess, 8%, and then Bowers at 7.5%. I think he's decent as well. I know McBride is going to be super, super low owned, and I know it's probably going to be a good script for passing for Arizona. I don't really like McBride today. If you're going to go up, I'd go Kincaid or Bowers. I think David Njoku is super interesting as well. This is just like an amazing matchup for Cleveland, and he's not going to get ownership. So I think Njoku in large field GPPs is a really strong play.
So the report was, I want to see who was it that reported that basically he might not be at a full allotment of snaps. I want to get the quote correct.
Let me see if they may have docked his projection already for that. Let me see though.
And this is one of those things where like sometimes in the flow of the game, and if he's fine, like they just kind of throw that out. But maybe they just kind of say it in passing just in case. You never really know how this stuff is going, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Bobby, you ever thought of, because I think he's really interesting too, and I was a little bit concerned. And he's a tough dude. Remember, he burned his face off, and he like went out and played with a burnt face. Like he's a tough guy. He's going to want to play.
He's a strange guy too. If you've seen his interview from yesterday,
I didn't see that.
I like Njoku a lot. Him and Bowers, I think, are really good tournament pivots. I think that's what our sim showed too, correct? Eric Gall as well. Like talk about him at the top of the show. I'm very bullish on Cincy, so he's someone I want to get to. I'll have Kincaid and McBride. I just don't know where. Probably around the field for both. Maybe a little under on Kincaid. I don't like Buffalo's offense this week as much as I think a lot of people do.
I see TJ typing in chat. I don't get how people don't like Strange.
Strange is a good play. Sims are showing he's a good play as well.
I mean, I'm not enthralled, but I think he's fine because it's all nonsense when it comes to some of those 3K tight ends. He's no worse than those guys. I don't like Gesicki distinctly more, so I'm okay with it. It probably is just a quarterback thing. If I have Trevor Lawrence, I'll play some Strange, and that's kind of what will make my decision.
At the top there, Ertz makes a good bit of sense versus Cleveland. They can't cover tight ends. No one's going to play him because he's just Zach Ertz, because no one wants to play a guy that's just basically catches a ball and falls down. But if he catches the ball and falls down in the end zone twice, you're going to be pretty happy. So I like the Ertz. I like the fact the Sims are showing Ertz.
Jeremy in chat says weather in Jacksonville. Well, you know what? Chief Meteorologist Kevin Roth, I have his article here. I'll go ahead and drop it in chat as well. Currently yellow-orange in Jacksonville. I'm reading on behalf of Roth here. I like their chances of seeing rain in this one. Widely scattered showers and storms will be seen throughout the area. So I'd say that off and on light to moderate rain is highly likely, with occasional downpours possible. Can't really pinpoint the downpours until just before kickoff. So I would imagine Roth either is going to be updating this article or will be updating on Twitter at Kevin Roth WX, or possibly both. But, general rules is outside of like mega downpours, wind is the big thing. Some light rain, I don't really care about. Tim, do we care about if there's some rain here in Jacksonville?
I'm not worried about light to moderate rain. I would be worried a little bit more if there was wind, which he's not reporting on. So I'm guessing there isn't.
Downpour? Do you like downpour?
Yeah, I mean, an occasional downpour. Is that really? I don't know. I don't know what that means. I mean, there's supposed to be 25-mile-an-hour gusts, I think, in Chicago.
I don't want to accuse Roth of being on the fence in this write-up, but he seems like he's on the fence.
Well, I think what he's doing is he's saying, like, I'll know more in an hour and a half.
He's hedging in an hour and a half. Yeah.
Well, he doesn't know. Yeah. He's basically saying, like, he's teasing, like, oh, check back in an hour and a half, and 2 hours, whenever whenever we can get to it. We're still 2 hours out as far as kickoff, but that's the best they can do. Yeah, Chicago is 25-mile-per-hour gusts. That's kind of standard. I guess it's a little higher than standard in Chicago, but that's kind of what I'm concerned. 25 sustained winds at 15. I don't really care, but 25, yeah. It's also yellow in Pittsburgh as well. Again, I just went and dropped that in chat. I also dropped in chat. I put up that tweet this week where you tell me your boldest proclamation. Do not answer in the YouTube chat. If you guys are in YouTube, hit that like button. Do subscribe. Turn on those notifications. Do all those things. But click on that tweet and let me know your boldest call. If you are correct, if you are most accurate, you get yourself a week free of RotoGrinders Premium. Again, do only answer on the tweet. Do only answer in chat. I'm not going to remember this 7 hours from now, whatever it is, no matter how spectacular your call may be. Jeremy wants to know, is Ingram out for sure? Not for sure, but yeah, he's going to be out.
Yeah, he's not expected to play according to Jeremy Fowler. So
yeah, okay, there you go. Did that just drop? He's probably, is he calling the game, Fowler?
No, that was from yesterday.
Okay,
so yeah, he's not like officially out, but I think he is pretty close to officially.
He is right. Strange is a really good play. They just concede targets to the middle of the field.
I really like that game too. So.
Would you
Bobby,
say
Stranger Craft? And I guess you want to bring
in cash, it's Craft.
In cash, it's Craft. Yeah.
Yeah.
In tournaments, you can go to Strange.
I really don't mind playing Strange in single entry though.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if there's anything else of note. Bobby, you have your favorite stack, be it like a game stack. This is just a team stack. If you're making, I don't know if you have like one, I know you make a bunch of lineups, like one big boy lineup and like the main, your biggest entry. Have you figured out who that team is just yet, or if it's a game stack, or you're still kind of figuring that out?
I'm getting a little, this makes me not very happy, but I'm getting a ton of Watson and Cooper, which I'm going to play, obviously. I just, from my gut, I really like Burrow today. I really like Burrow to Chase, Burrow to Higgins. Any of these Cincy guys, I think are fine to stack with Burrow.
Are you forcing a run back with Watson, Cooper? I mean, it could be Robinson or McLaurin, I guess. I mean, I guess you can play Ertz, I suppose, but probably don't want to.
I like McLaurin.
Yeah. Same question for you, Tim?
What was that?
So I don't know if you're in the Wildcat, whatever your big entry is today. You have a main stack, main game stack, main team stack. Have you kind of figured out, where you're taking a stand, where this offense does things, you're cooking, and if not,
I want to play. I want to play a Flacco double. So that's what I'm planning on.
Flacco doesn't care about the weather.
No.
And that's Pittman Downs, right? You're not getting cute with that. It's Pittman Downs, I assume.
It's probably going to be Pittman Downs, yeah. And then we didn't talk about Travis Etienne, but I mean, I don't know.
What do you want to say about him?
Well, I know. I mean, because
we're waiting.
Bigsby's taking a lot of work from him, but still, like, I don't know. I don't know if I don't know if I'll run back the Colts with 2 Jags or just one. Like go Brian Thomas Jr. and Strange.
You're going to stack up the weather game?
I am. I might.
Yeah.
Also, I think that Roth will update that weather report. So
yeah,
if it gets worse, maybe I'll reconsider. But if it
gets worse, don't stack it. Don't double.
No, but if it stays the same or gets better, then I'm going to stack that game.
We got a couple questions in chat. I know we have the next group coming in here shortly, but until we do that, we'll knock out some questions here in chat. Bobby, let's see. Reed or Flowers? Max Profits wants to know. I know where Bobby's going here. Reed or Flowers?
So I think I'm going Flowers. The cash game play is obviously Reed. For me, though, it's going to be Flowers.
Let's see. Mr. Wessels, this is for Tim. Let's see. Downs or Wicks in a flex spot for tournaments. Let's assume that like their quarterback is neither, there's no quarter. It's not any quarterback tied to the receivers. You prefer Downs or Wicks? I assume it's Wicks in that case.
Yeah, I mean the projections are much in favor of Wicks, so I'd say Wicks, but I don't mind Downs. TJ
says he thinks it's foolish to play Flacco unless you're double stacking. I don't understand.
I kind of agree.
Why can't I just play one of the two? I don't understand. Why do I have to double stack?
Because he's not going to get you any rushing points.
He's not going to be optimal unless he gets you 303. And if he gets you 303, they're not all going to be the Pittman.
But if 2 are, and 1 goes to like Kyle Granson, I'm not playing Kyle Granson.
I mean, the majority of Flacco lineups are going to be a single stack. He's not going to be optimal with a single stack worthy game. And so I think taking a shot on Jeter Downs, who he's targeted an absolute ton. I never
Jeter Downs.
That's what I heard too. I heard Jeter Downs as well. The player.
What's his name?
Boston.
Is it?
Josh
Who's
Downs.
Jeter Downs? Josh Downs.
He's a baseball player.
Baseball.
He's a baseball player. That's funny.
I think
Josh
he was
Downs.
Jeter
Downs.
I don't personally ever play a not running quarterback unless I'm playing at least two of their pass catchers.
Yeah, that's my pickle today, TJ. That is my quandary because I like the non-running quarterbacks, which is not comfortable for me. But it just kind of is what it is, and we'll see how that goes down. I should have asked TJ where's our next crew? Are they late? Did they not get the memo?
They're here. They're ready. They're ready.
Oh, okay. So TJ, well, I guess I can tie this off. I don't have access to the green room, so I usually get a note when they're here. So they've been waiting this whole time. How rude of me to make Erik and Neil and Squirrel wait. They probably been hanging out in the bullpen for the last 5 minutes or so. Let's go ahead and bring them on. Let's bring on Erik, Neil, Squirrel.
Hey.
Is everybody coming to us from parts on? Erik, are you from parts unknown today?
No parts unknown. I'm frazzled though by TJ was adamant about getting the Jeter Downs taken while letting us sit in the green room.
Is Jeter Downs a real person? Like, where did that name come from?
Josh. Dean asked me a question. I got distracted and forgot to look.
Jeter Downs is a real person, but why did you go to Jeter Downs? I don't know why
Jeter popped in my head over Josh. I don't know. They both start with a J. I don't know. I see J Downs all the time.
Looks like Jeter Downs now he's wearing a Yankees cap. Of course, he had to be inevitably a Yankee, but I think he was once upon a time a Boston prospect. But this is Daily Fantasy.
The man is about to win. He's fighting for a World Series championship right now. Don't disrespect my guy Jeter Downs.
Yeah, there you go. He's no Jason Dominguez. All right. Speaking of like random names, Erik, is your whole best ball shares, are they alive today? Can we get a touch? Is that happening?
We're hoping for above zero, Dean. That's the hope.
It's funny how the best ball thing went. The best ball thing where it went. I feel like everyone had like a certain idea how it was going to go, and it's like every best ball year just flipped the other way.
Chaos, total chaos.
It turns out it's a tough sport. Guys get injured. Like who would have?
Guys get injured. Yeah.
Who could have foresaw such things? All right, TJ. Well, I don't know why I'm saying TJ, but yeah, we're gonna get out of here. Tim, anything else? Bobby, anything else before you step aside and move along?
That's good luck, guys.
All righty. Do appreciate y'all watching the first portion. Beimfohr. Erik, take it over.
Cheers. As always, shouts to the People Show. I love listening to those three guys. And I'm super, super fascinated by this slate. I'm very, very interested to hear what these two fine young gentlemen, of course, John Breslin, a.k.a. SquirrelPatrol, and Neil Orfield, every Sunday here on GPP Final Takes. We'll go back to flannel takes when we nail everything, like maybe the first couple of weeks. But if you have not joined us before on this show, we're not necessarily going to go position by position. We're not necessarily going to go game by game. We're going to try to hop around to all the most pertinent, the most impactful things that are what you're deciding on for your tournament lineups. If you have any questions, of course, they can also be cash related. Please post them in the chat. I will try to keep up with as many of them as I can. And crunch time will be up after us, leading you up to lock if the three of us don't hit on anything that you would like to hear discussed. First of all, I'm going to try to lay out this slate for you guys. And the key word is definitely chaos. Okay. But it's so interesting to me when I started to try to put together lineups that not only do we have like multiple players from the same, it's very condensed projections, ownership, everything into just a handful of situations. And I understand that, right? We'll get into the Green Bay Packers and all that kind of stuff, Joe Flacco, but there's like other guys hurt. There's other interesting games. I found it to be the hardest slate to like build lineups that I'm like, okay, I feel really good about this, right? The chalk that I'm fading on this team feels really good, but simultaneously the easiest to be different. Like it feels very, very straightforward on being different. So I'm curious what you guys are thinking, just overarching theme about this slate. John, why don't you kick us off?
Sure. So it's the first time we've got bye weeks, and it's only got 10 games, but it actually feels much bigger. So we've had a couple of slates now that have actually like been like 12 games and felt a little bit smaller. This one's 10 games and it feels a little bit bigger, and the injuries are really, really hitting. A lot of the content comes out like Friday afternoon, and as we were sitting there Friday afternoon, we're getting like confirmation of these guys that are going to be out, and then it just continued on throughout the weekend. I think having like Anthony Richardson confirmed out, or Joe Flacco starting, like kind of changes the shape of that game a little bit. Jonathan Taylor was already out. We've got Devin Singletary out. We've just got injuries everywhere, and that gives us cheap players to work with. So it's an interesting week because we can maybe spend up a little bit more than we would have thought in certain places, as of like Thursday or Friday.
Neil, how have you just kind of thought, again, like we'll get into all the specific plays and all that different stuff, but just like as you're putting together some lineups, some shells, whatever you want to call it, thinking about lineups, how have you kind of felt about this slate overall?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with John that it's really easy to put lineups together because we have so much value on this slate. I mean, I start putting in like some of my favorite value plays where I'm like, this guy could put up 30 fantasy points at 5,000. Like we have a few of those types of plays. I throw them into my lineup and I'm like, I have $2,000 left over. Like I don't want to leave salary on the table. Generally not a good idea on full slates NFL, leaving a ton of salary on the table. But it's been, haven't really seen that in past weeks this year. It's been kind of like it's hard to stay under the salary cap. This week it feels like it's almost hard to use the full salary cap if you start playing from that value approach. But we've got some pay ups at running back. Yeah, it should be a fun slate. There are a few games that I'm really excited about. Some games that we can almost entirely ignore. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about kind of the backup running back value, the backup receiver value. It'll be a fun slate.
I'm definitely interested in some angles you guys might have to this, because I think everybody can build like you said an air quotes optimal, right? We can argue about the semantics of which lineup is the exact optimal for this slate, but anybody can see the Green Bay Packers, not even just Christian Watson, but Romeo Doubs apparently went down the wide receiver diva avenue this week and is suspended for this game. Luke Musgrave, right? Like Jordan Love is back. We're not even getting the chaos of, okay, but it's Malik Willis. Nope. Jordan Love is back. The matchup is pretty good, but there's like only so many to start with the Packers. Only so many like Packers, like you can only play so many in one lineup. Clearly, these are like probably the best plays from a projection standpoint on the slate, but they also all can't be popular. Neil, how are you like first thinking about attacking this Packers situation with I don't really remember something like this where the Packers are so like anti-fragile. We kind of talk about that in best ball. Speaking of best ball stuff over the summers, like guys go down, like they just got more good play. Like they got more good. Bo Melton is a good wide receiver, right? Dontavian Wicks is a good wide receiver. So they just step up and it just feels like NBA, right? Like starting point guard's out. I put the backup guy in, I'm gonna get the same thing. So how are you like thinking that through on, like you said, they're chalky and all that stuff?
It's pretty hard to imagine every Packers player failing on this slate. So I'm not setting a rule like one Packer in every lineup, but I was just scrolling through my lineups as you were talking about, and I'm like, yeah, I have at least one Packer in every single lineup that I've made today. The value is just too good. I mean, I guess you could have Jaden Reed put up 18 and not need to have it kind of score, and none of the value guys could get there. But man, it's paper thin against this Rams defense. Like this Packers team should be able to put up points, even if they can't put up points. Dontavian Wicks, Bo Melton, Tucker Kraft, they have so many great value options that should just be able to rack up PPR points. Yeah, I'm going to be playing a lot of Packers in my lineups. Not even really trying to force it. Just the value is too good on the Packers. So I almost think it would be like in a single entry, if you're making a lineup that doesn't have any Packers in it, there are ways for it to get there, but almost feels like a mistake because the value is too good on the Packers in general. And I don't think I'm going to have a single lineup without any. I have several that don't have Jordan Love and still have multiple Packers skill position players because they're just so good across the board. Getting to a ton, and then the Rams pretty good also, getting to a good amount of full game stacks.
Yeah, John, how are you? I would guess, if you guys would know this better than I, if you're running 150, especially on multiple sites, if you're not like actively forcing Packers out of your team, you probably are going to have at least one Packer on every single team. So how are you kind of thinking about it? And this is not just one guy, right? Normally it's like, okay, what do we do with Jordan Mason? There's 5 players on the back, and they almost can't fail, right? Like at a Mac, like Neil said, generally, right? Someone is going to do something. Are they optimal or not? Like, who knows? But like, they also all can't get there either. So like, how are you approaching the Packers in your lineups?
Yeah, it's just a situation where they're all underpriced. I think we were expecting Christian Watson, to be out with an injury, and then Romeo Doubs, I was actually thinking he was going to be in, and then Friday, looks like, well, no, he's not. No, there's a whole thing going on there.
The Packers thought he was going to be in too.
Yeah, I was doing my like 3:00 show on Friday, and I was like talking about Dobbs, and somebody's like, oh no, he's out. And I guess it was just evolving like Friday afternoon. I don't know. I think Jaden Reed is the guy that jumps off the page. Like Jordan Love, pops off the page at quarterback. Then in terms of like the pass catchers, I think it's Jaden Reed. Tucker Kraft is underpriced. I mean, they're all underpriced because they've got two of the starting wide receivers are out. I think Reed is the guy I'm going to be playing the most of, and he's the guy that's hardest to get away from. Like, I think Tucker Kraft is just underpriced, but he's not necessarily going to be like the main cause of the offense. I'm playing a lot of like Jaden Reed in lineups that don't have Jordan Love. And there's going to be some Wicks like sprinkled in there, but I'm saving. Yeah, I'm also playing some Jordan Love, Tucker Kraft, Wicks and Reed teams. Everybody's just underpriced, and we live in a world of salary cap.
It is a salary cap game. It doesn't, like Neil said, it doesn't totally feel like it today. If I'm being completely honest. So let's talk about quickly though, like how to build maybe teams that are different with the Packers, or some different approaches to, if there is a way, right? Because I have ownership pulled up, and just on DraftKings, Tucker Kraft is the highest expected owned Packer at, let's just call it 30%, Jaden Reed 26%, Dontavian Wicks 22%, Josh Jacobs 16%, Jordan Love 15%, Bo Melton 7%. So you clearly see where my brain then instantly goes, that Bo Melton is the one that's the cheapest and the one that's the lowest owned. But then I have this like, yeah, but what am I using the salary on? Is he really gonna outscore Dontavian Wicks? I don't know. But then I also see Josh Jacobs, where all the 3 highest owned players are pass catchers. Josh Jacobs is in a pretty good spot as well. He's not low owned, but he's not the super chalk of the Packers. How are you, Neil, like thinking about maybe being different within the Packers, as opposed to like, I think everybody likes Jordan Reed or Jaden Reed, but how are you thinking about approaching the team from a tournament perspective?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds pretty obvious to go to Bo Melton at 7%, but I also think that's a great way to get different. I mean, Bo Melton, very good last year in terms of yards per route run, wasn't included in any list because the sample size was too small, but I think he's actually a pretty talented receiver, and steps into, the Packers have run kind of a rotation at receiver when everybody's healthy. You see a 4-man rotation, Melton not really a part of that, but now we have 2 receivers out. Like we could see more run for the 3 starting receivers. Who knows if they're going to pull in, is it Malik Heath or, the 5th receiver
play
as much
today, but I don't think it's quite like the Wicks playing 25 snaps when he was the wide receiver 4.
Yeah. So Bo Melton, I mean, even if he was 5,000, if he was Wicks's price, getting 80% route participation, or I think that's within the range of outcomes, that he's just an 80-90% route participant guy. Might not be. Maybe they continue to do a rotation, but you'd think maybe it condenses a little bit with 2 starters out, so could just be really involved in the offense. And I don't think they have. I mean, I think Jaden Reed is at this point is the pretty clear wide receiver 1 for the Packers. I think we didn't necessarily know that coming in, but he's looked too good to not be the wide receiver 1. But beyond Jaden Reed, I mean, I think Dontavian Wicks is ahead of Bo Melton. Like, he's, in terms of playing time, he is certainly, but I don't necessarily know in terms of usage when he's on the field if he's going to necessarily take the 3rd seat behind Dontavian Wicks. So yeah, I have a lot of interest in Bo Melton. everybody loves Wicks. I love Wicks just as much as the next guy. Super exciting player. He's only 5,000. The price is too cheap, so I'll go there. Don't get me wrong, but if you're just trying to get different within the Packers, I think you named the two real ways to do so that make sense. Bo Melton and Josh Jacobs. Yeah, I like Jacobs too. Clearly, like the best leverage play on the slate, with everybody wanting to play, or I shouldn't say on the slate, maybe they're better, but on the team, everybody wants to play through the passing game against the Rams, but they also don't necessarily need to pass that much. Maybe they're just going to run more with a couple of starting receivers out. They should be able to run all over this Rams defense. So if Josh Jacobs ends up with 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, nobody should be shocked. And certainly that is a path to not many receivers putting up a ton of fantasy points. So yeah, I like Josh Jacobs quite a bit. I like Bo Melton quite a bit. I'm still going to be playing a ton. Jaden Reed currently is my highest owned player on the slate. I have a lot of Dontavian Wicks, so don't get me wrong. I love the chalky Packers too, but certainly going to be above weight to 7% Bo Melton. Going to try to get above weight to Josh Jacobs as well.
This situation, John, is pretty difficult for me, because I think that they're like I can't poke a hole in any of these guys. No, like we'll sit here on Sunday, right? And I'll try really hard, even when it's stupid, right? We'll poke holes in $5,900 Jordan Mason. Like I'll try anything to poke. I can't really see anything. If I had to pick something, it would be the Rams still don't have Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. The Rams want to run the ball. They actually like, I don't mean play slow in terms of necessarily a tempo perspective, but it can be a little like Aaron Rodgers-y with Matthew Stafford. Get up to the line, check, right? Run the clock down and run the football with Kyren Williams. If this game is going to disappoint, I think it would be that the Packers maybe run it a little bit more than we expect, and Kyren on the other side kind of controls it. What do you think about the Rams side of things? Because like I said at the top, like they don't have Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. Jordan Whittington took a step forward. Kyren is like the focal point of the offense. But all we're talking about really for tournaments is the Packers side, because it's the new thing. And those guys are underpriced. I get it. But how do the Rams come into play in terms of, if we want a game stack or if we want to try to leverage off of some of the Packers?
Yeah, so I think that's one of the other things that's making the Packers jump off the page. If you start like setting rules that you want like a game stack or whatever, you get some Rams in there really easily, because Kyren Williams is projecting really well, and you have Whittington who's projecting really well for his price. So yeah, then you end up with like a full game stack that's pretty close to the optimal lineup.
Optimal is the game stack. It's crazy.
Yeah. So and like I feel like that happens once or twice a year, where you just get to a couple of guys missing from the same game on each side, and then suddenly like what that's the optimal lineup game stack. But I think you're going to see that lineup a lot. And like I don't know, it's not a bad idea, but I do think you can maybe take the thought process. You're going to either run it back, you're going to have Jordan Love like overstacked with multiple receivers. You're going to run it back with multiple Rams, and that's your lineup, or you can just go to a different game. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the Rams, I like Kyren Williams, I like Jordan Whittington. There's probably not too much else that I really love from the Rams side, but like those are two pretty good pieces there that run back pretty easily with the Packers.
I'll toss Colby Parkinson in there. I think it's like an interesting like swap the tight ends in that game. Like Parkinson has the same role as Tucker. He's not as good, and his role's not as good as Tucker Kraft. But I would just toss him into the Rams discussion, but agree with all that. Neil, what do you think about the Rams side and like game stacks and everything here? Because it's short. If you want to avoid ownership, just like X out this game, but I don't think you can do that on this slate because there's just so many good plays on both sides.
Yeah, I would throw Tutu Atwell in there as well. Yeah. Should be fairly low owned. I think he's 4,900, has a really strong role on the Rams. So I do like including him at kind of lower ownership in game stacks as well. But otherwise, I think you've kind of named all the players that I have interested. Yeah, Colby Parkinson is right there with Tucker Kraft. They don't project all that differently. He's slightly more expensive, should get less ownership. So I do like Colby Parkinson. Hard not to like Jordan Whittington. Seemed to kind of take over that wide receiver one role last week. I don't think I'm getting to Demarcus Robinson, but it does kind of feel like we're all kind of forgetting about him. He's still running. He's still out there like just as much as the other two, not that much more expensive. So it seems like should be a decent GPP play, even though I'm not getting there. We know Demarcus Robinson has that kind of big play upside. Most of his catches this year seem to be down the field quite a ways. So that's another way you could get different. I don't think I'm going there again, but I'm going to. I like Kyren quite a bit. The role is just too good for Kyron to ignore him. I'm into Whittington, as I said, Tutu Atwell, Colby Parkinson. I think that's it for me as far as Rams go.
Makes a ton of sense. If you guys have more questions on this game, we could spend the whole slate probably talking about every minute detail of this game. It's important, but I do want to hit everything else and hit you guys questions. If you have more questions that involve players in this game, please feel free to fire them in the chat. But before we start to move on, I want to hit. I do like this. Erik says, not just because we have the same name, because he spells it with a C, so he doesn't really count. Everyone is on the Packers, so the Rams are gonna win it. It feels so much like that. Like, if you want me to put my Aaron Rodgers is playing right now, so it's fitting. If you want me to put my tinfoil hat on, right about now, like, it just feels like, yep, the Rams. Kyron, 35 carries, 200 yards. The Packers. Jordan Love does one of his, Jordan Love plays first half last week. Jordan Love, not second half. Jordan Love, and so I do think that playing that game through some things like that is interesting. Like, this game just kind of duds and we never ever saw it coming is pretty fun. Some questions. The first one was asking about the Sunday night game. Let's do this. Let's go ahead and do the Sunday night game because it's on FanDuel. I'm looking for more plays, and CeeDee Lamb is involved there, which is nice. And the Cowboys defense is quite terrible. So we have Cowboys and Steelers, of course, only on the FanDuel slate, but you can use it for some Showdown too. John, what are you doing with that game on FanDuel, or of course, just any general takes on Steelers Cowboys?
So I think on FanDuel, the guy that's going to see the most ownership is going to be Najee Harris, and I'm very comfortable being under the field. I don't like playing Najee Harris ever. And I think Jake Ferguson is definitely a valid tight end. It's not like a game that I'm getting to a ton on FanDuel, just because it's 43 or 44 point total. I mean, it's fine. Steelers are favored. It's Steelers are pretty good defense. The Cowboys are a pretty good offense. But it's not really a game that jumps off the page for me, other than I just kind of want to be under the field on Najee Harris.
That worked quite well. I think our segment went about exactly last week on Najee. Najee was like the chalk running back. Now Cordell Patterson is out, but I think we pretty much left it at that. It's Najee. If we're underweight on him or fade him, whatever. If he burns me, burns me. That's kind of how I feel. But Neil, maybe you're a little more into that. And I do think this game is intriguing if we didn't have so much Packers and all that kind of stuff, because George Pickens is an alpha on one side, CeeDee Lamb is an alpha on the other side. Brandon Cooks also is out, was just placed on IR for the Cowboys. So kind of condensed target trees. It's an intriguing game. What are you doing with it on FanDuel?
Yeah, I mean, it's as good of a spot as you could ask for Najee Harris. The Cowboys have given up I guess not quite as good, but you know what I mean. Seventh most schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to running backs so far this year. Now you get Jaylen Warren out, you get Cordell Patterson out. Also, the Cowboys defense is a little bit banged up. Micah Parsons out for this one. Trevon Diggs questionable as well. So he's Najee Harris. I'm not overly excited about it. I don't want to make it sound like I'm playing a ton of Najee Harris, but I think he is. The chalk makes sense. I'll say that just because he should see all the usage he can handle. I don't really know how much they want to go to Shampklin, the backup running back, the RB2 now for the Steelers. Never heard of this guy previously. He's apparently he was a substitute teacher. I was doing my Showdown write-up. A substitute teacher last year. He was a Harvard running back in the day. I don't know, just guy they pulled off.
He's the Kurt Warner. He's Kurt Warner of
maybe he's awesome. I'm cheering for him, but not sure that they're going to use him a ton today. I would imagine they lean on Najee Harris a little bit more. So the role is pretty good. The other name that we need to shout out, Jake Ferguson, is almost cash. I think he's cash playable on FanDuel. I'm not sure if I would go there, but he's 6,200. Great role there. The Steelers have been, a little bit weaker against tight end versus other positions, which it's all relative. I think they're just a really good defense. So I don't want to read too much into that, but they have allowed some fantasy points to tight ends. So I think Jake Ferguson certainly in play. Obviously you can play CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, sprinkle them in a little bit, but yeah, not a game that I'm overly excited to play a ton of. If I'm targeting anybody, it's Jake Ferguson. And I think Najee Harris is certainly somebody to consider.
I will just say this is, I'm hand up bias. I played Fields, Pickens, last week, okay, and it went well. So that
Yep.
I'm admitting it's possible that there is bias in here, but I think that's probably a little underowned on FanDuel. Fields Pickens, Najee being super popular again. Pickens is just like, his role is awesome. Now you need them to throw it a little bit, right? You need some luck to put, because Arthur doesn't want to. You don't want to sling it around, But the Cowboys present the bad defense with a good enough offense that theoretically we could see something similar to last week. And you get Najee. Somebody in the chat, Javon says Najee 20 carries for, right? We get 20 carries for 22 yards from Najee. Yep. They fall behind and you get more Fields Pickens. So I do like that quite a bit on FanDuel again today. Speaking of that Steelers game, they lost to the Colts last week. We definitely got to talk about that game. Waiting on a weather update from our expert Kevin Roth that will be impactful for that one. But I think this is maybe the second most important game to discuss on the slate. Joe Flacco, of course, starting for injured Anthony Richardson. And as expected, he unlocked the pass catchers for the Indianapolis Colts last week when he came into the game. But I think on the opposite side, so this is like the dollar store version of the Packers Rams, where like both sides have some pretty good projecting plays and some pretty strong plays. It's just Joe Flacco versus Trevor Lawrence instead. John, what are you doing with the new Joe Flacco offense and as well as the Jaguars on the other side?
Yeah, it's a game I'm getting to. I am a little bit concerned about the weather, because I think what would be interested in here is the passing offenses. Yeah. And it felt a little bit sneaky, but then it seems a little bit popular, and now there's like some weather concerns. So like maybe it's actually a place I don't want to get to as much as I was like initially thinking that I would be getting to. Yeah, I mean, we've got Joe Flacco, and that could really change the entire complexion of the game, because now you don't have Jonathan Taylor either. So there's maybe going to be a lot less rushing on the side of the Colts, and that leaves the Jaguars in a pretty good spot where they could, the game could have more plays than we were expecting. Jaguars are favored. They really need to win. Like if there's a team that like needs a narrative, big win, then it's the Jags. And I was saying maybe that is a case there where they keep the foot on the gas a little bit longer than they would otherwise, right? Like they're a team that if they're up 28-7 in the fourth quarter or something, like they probably want that fifth touchdown, and to just kind of like get the narrative around the team changed, maybe more so than other teams would. So I don't know. I don't really know what I'm going to be doing with it. I'm probably just waiting for a weather report and seeing if it's all okay, and then I'll probably get to it. I will say that it's a 45.5 point total. It's not insane. Like it's not like it's a and it's obviously not an indoors game either. So I don't know. I think it's a game that if the rest of the field is getting to, I think it's okay to skip over it. But it's a game I'm going to be getting to probably in my multi-entry set.
John just nailed it, Neil, for exactly how I'm thinking about this. Earlier in the week, I was like, I think Richardson looked like he was seriously hurt. And I like it's so condensed, right? Pittman Downs, Kirk, Brian Thomas on the other side because Evan Ingram is out. Of course, there's other guys, but generally speaking, it's condensed. And then slowly but surely, even with all this news, the ownership started to tick up a little bit on this game, which has me like, I'm definitely sitting on the fence on how I want to approach this one, but I see all the perks. How are you handling Colts, Jaguars? Again, let's just assume the weather's okay for right now, and we can check back in a little bit with Roth.
Well, it looks like we're still not getting to a ton of ownership on Joe Flacco. So I think the stack overall maybe is going to be not super chalky. So I think going to Joe Flacco, double stacks with Pittman and Downs. I will say they were having the conversation before we came in, or right as we were waiting, about whether it would be okay to double stack Joe Flacco up. I'm forcing the double stack. I would be okay with a single stack, though. I think it's fine to single stack on a main. So you could just have a lot of volume go to one of his receivers and then kind of spread out the rest. So I am in the camp that it is okay, but also I'm going to be double stacking today, generally just to Pittman and Downs when I play Joe Flacco. I do think a lot of people are probably going to play it that way, or maybe there, I don't know. I don't know what the split will be between double and single stacks. But I like the game quite a bit. I'm going to have a lot of Pittman and Downs one-offs. Also, I'm not always going to have the stack on the Colts side. Trey Sermon, I think, is playable, even with the running back by committee comments, even with as bad as he is. Great matchup with Jacksonville. So I think maybe he's surprised. Maybe he's not as bad as I think he is. He could surprise us today. He's 5,700.
He's
not really
bad.
Priced. It's
bad.
Yeah, he is. He's almost certainly bad. But
he also looks a little like Najee. If you watch Trey Sermon run, you start to get this weird feeling like I've seen this before.
Yeah, I mean it's not great, but great matchup with Jacksonville at least. It's funny because we have a couple other backup running backs on the slate come in, and we've got like Tyrone Tracy at 4,300 and Antonio Gibson. Somehow Trey Sermon is the most expensive of the group, 5,700. I don't know. Borderline playable. Ooh, Evan Ingram is inactive, so we officially have that news. I guess we just hit that point. Yeah, so I think Trey Sermon, arguably, he's playable. I like Downs, I like Pittman. Flacco, I think, is going a little bit under-owned, so I like the full stack. And then the Jacksonville side, I like a lot of it. I think Travis Etienne going a little bit overlooked. I know it's a little bit of a committee at this point, but I still think that he's the more talented back in the committee. Hasn't necessarily looked like it this year. I think it's been Tank Bigsby's looked really good, but I think Etienne is still the lead back of that committee in a great matchup, coming in at pretty low ownership. So interested in Etienne. Certainly love Brian Thomas. I think Christian Kirk in play. I don't know if I'm getting to Trevor Lawrence, but I think he's borderline playable. And Brenton Strange, I struggle a little bit with Brenton Strange just because his role last week was not as good as it had been the two previous weeks. Saw 12 targets, was running, I don't know, remember the exact numbers, but it was like 60-70% route participation in the previous two games. That came down quite a bit last week. So a little bit sketched out by the Luke Farrell getting a little bit more playing time last week, the backup tight end, but I still think Brenton Strange is playable. Still saw 3 targets last week. Great matchup. So I might include him in some lineups. I don't think I'm going to Gabe Davis or anything else. So I think that's basically it.
Tough scene for old Gabe. My guy, Gabe, 5 targets, 1 catch for -2 yards last week, and clearly behind Christian Kirk and Brian Thomas. So I'm going to say, okay, Dean corrected. No, yet no weather update from Roth as of yet. But yeah, why we're talking about it is he has it as yellow-orange right now, meaning we're trending towards not great. Yellow, I don't even look at, if I'm being honest. But once we get into the orange territory, especially because I think the margins are really thin, John, on this slate. And like, I don't want to force it, even though I do really, really like this game. But if you had to pick, let's say someone says, I'm just going to do the Packers thing, or I'm going to play the afternoon games, but like this game is really appealing. Who would be your favorite guy in the Colts Jags game?
I was getting ready to say Brian Thomas, but it's really close. I think between Pittman and Thomas. I would, I'm going to go with like Brian Thomas. The Jags are the favorite team here. Like, I think we're getting, really into the Colts because, that's the big news as of like, I guess this morning or yesterday that, that Flacco was going to be getting the start, and that puts the wide receivers more in play. But like the Jags are still the favorite team here. So yeah, let me check. I'm checking the ownership. Yeah, I'd go Brian Thomas, and that's kind of ownership considered. Like Pittman is going to be project much better, but Thomas is going to come in with much lower ownership.
I agree. I'm super. I don't know how you feel, Neil, but Brian Thomas feels like Christian Kirk is fine, but Christian Kirk is like Christian Kirk. It's like you woke up and you ate oatmeal and like you're satisfied, like your stomach is full, but you're not like you're not excited about it. Brian Thomas, you got a nice steak and eggs or whatever your favorite breakfast is. I feel like he's really coming on. Anything else to add on that game, and then we'll hit some questions from the chat.
No, I think you nailed it. Once you factor in ownership, it probably becomes Brian Thomas. I do really love Michael Pittman, getting to a lot there, a lot of downs, but I think that was well said.
So some really good questions. Keep those coming in the chat, by the way. Let's talk about the Seattle and New York Giants situation. Donnie asked, not sure if I missed it, but with Walker being kind of chalky and the Seattle pass catchers, going really low owned, thoughts on Geno stacks. And that is an interesting game The Giants, of course, are without Malik Neighbors, concussed last week and did not make it through the protocol. Devin Singletary is technically doubtful, I think, but basically it has been said he's been ruled out. Don't quote me on that specifically. The Giants, for anybody that hasn't watched, their entire offense revolves around those two players. It's not a very good offense with them. So now we have a pretty, dire situation for the New York Giants. On the flip side, Ken Walker back healthy, 3 touchdowns against the Lions last week. I very much love Ken Walker, but John, what do you think about Seattle? Are you just playing Walker in their defense? Are you getting some leverage like Donnie mentioned? And anything on the Tyrone Tracy is, and in many other weeks, Tyrone Tracy would be very popular. We just don't need him this week. So what do you think about this one?
Yeah, actually probably like Tracy the best from this game. He's just, he's really cheap at 4,300. That allows you to do some different things with your lineups. Kenneth Walker is good. I see this as a game where maybe the Giants are going to disappoint. And so that makes Tracy have some appeal for me in terms of like a pass catching running back. And like, I don't know, he's a rookie 5th rounder. So they're presumably a little bit high on him, if they went out and drafted him. So like this could be a situation where if he does well, he maybe takes a larger share of the backfield going forward. And I like the fact that he was converted wide receiver in college. Like, I don't really know much else about him other than he was a 5th round draft pick who was a converted wide receiver in college. But that's good enough for me. And he's 4,300. Like, those are the 3 facts that I know. And I like those things. I kind of probably want to be under the field on Wan'Dale Robinson. It seems like he's going to get 7 receptions and 8 yards, and he's going to project like better than he's going to have, your improve your chances of winning a tournament. He's actually priced up. So like a lot of times we've seen like much cheaper Wan'Dale Robinson, and like, well, maybe if he does get a bunch of receptions, he gets there. I think I probably want to be under the field on Wan'Dale Robinson. And I don't love the game as a whole, because I think what we could just see is Seattle wins. Maybe it hits the under. Kenneth Walker is getting, a lot of the work, but he doesn't pay off his price tag because he doesn't really catch passes. Seattle doesn't need to be passing. But like Tyrone Tracy is the guy that I see, like if he is like the 3 down back at 4,300, that's not difficult for him to pay off that price tag. So he's the guy that I'm most interested in from the game.
Some good comments from And2 in the I like that name, And2 in the chat. Seattle's defense, if we're putting our hand in the dirt, similar to honestly both the Rams and the Packers. Part of why it has me kind of intrigued by playing the running backs more so in that game than the wide receivers is they're very much kind of run funnel defenses. The Rams and Packers are pretty solid pass defenses, and Seattle is the same way. Solid is a loose term, like the Lions lit them up, but generally speaking, they get ran on, and the Lions run on everybody. So last week we kind of throw out the window, but the Seahawks have a pretty poor run defense, which does have me a little bit intrigued by Tyrone Tracy. Again, it kind of reminds me what if Colts Jags was the dollar store version of the Packers? Well, I don't know what this game is version of the Packers, but it feels a little bit like that, right? Like some chalk going on here, a team that everybody's going to gravitate to the Seahawks, but there is like a little bit of reason to be interested in the Giants. What are you doing with this one, Neil?
Yeah, I think we're on the same page once again. Love Tyrone Tracy here. Just too cheap, and I know the exact same facts as John. Former college receiver, might be 5th round rookie, might be good. We don't really know.
He's like 24, by by the way.
Yeah.
He's also about as old as us.
Yeah,
he's a rookie.
I mean, I'm a fan. 4,300, 4,800 on FanDuel. The price is right for a player who should be involved in all facets of the game. You'd have to imagine they're going to use him a good amount in the passing game. So you just get those PPR points at 4,300. Those go a long way. And then hopefully he can actually have some success, actually get some yards there as well. So love Tyrone Tracy. Also feel the same way about Wan'Dale Robinson. I think the ownership is going to spike a little bit because people see Malik Neighbors out and assume that's a good thing for Wan'Dale Robinson. And I'm not really sure that it is. We've seen Wan'Dale Robinson without Malik Neighbors was never that great. So I'm not sure it really is a good thing for Wan'Dale. I'm prepared for him to have 12 receptions and a touchdown and just bury me this week. But I don't think I'm going to go there a ton. You could go to like a Jalen Hyatt, Darius Slayton, maybe if you wanted to. I don't think I'm going anywhere. I think I'm really just going to Tyrone Tracy on the Giants side. Theo Johnson, I guess, borderline in play. And then on the Seattle side, yeah, I think it's kind of chalky. Geno is, I think, top 5 chalkiest quarterbacks on the slate. And I get it. I think he's kind of a cashy kind of play. But there are certainly paths to failure there. Not my favorite of the quarterback options in his range. I like DK. I'll probably be close to the field on DK, JSN. I don't know. I don't love it either. I think I largely echo what you guys have already laid out for this game. I think Seattle's fine, not really a spot I'm leaning into a ton. Kenneth Walker obviously looked great last week. The usage was incredible for Kenneth Walker, so I think the chalk makes sense. I think I'll probably be close to the field.
Are you guys putting in so non-game specific? This is a opto rules or just your strategy for this slate. Any form of rules around certain, like, obviously ownership, like max combinatorial ownership, but like I don't want to play Reed, Wicks, Love, Ken Walker, Kyron, whatever. Like, how many duplicates are we going to have of the Love double stack with Ken Walker, maybe Kyron on the other side, whatever? Are you guys doing anything specific to try to make sure that you're not playing like the same? Like, it's one thing to play like a chalky individual player or a chalky stack or whatever, but like there's like a group of like 5 or 6 players that are going to be put together a lot in lineups. John, are you doing anything to try to avoid that?
Not really. What I'm doing then is game stacking some other games. That's not leaving enough slots open to have like 4 or 5 guys from that game.
I mean, yeah, I rarely set a ton of those rules on a main slate. I just don't want to, put myself off of the nuts because I set too many rules. I have a lot of different levers that I can pull to get a little bit different. So yeah, I don't set that kind of rule. I think if you are like using an optimizer and doing 5 lineups, that might be a good idea to set more of those types of rules. Just like really lean into, I want to make very specific types of lineups for those 5. But yeah, not something that I'm doing.
Apparently, Aaron Rodgers is hurt here in the London game. Shannon says
Aaron Jones already hurt.
Yeah, Rodgers needs to give it up. Frogers is what Erik is calling him. The Vikings, of course, up 17-7 on the Jets, and the Jets look just about as lifeless as expected. Here we go. Update, TJ, thank you. It poured pretty good for anybody that's not watching in Jacksonville, but the heaviest of the rain has cleared, and there's some more scattered showers possible. So that makes me feel about as confident on either side as I feel less confident, honestly. Now, scattered showers, I guess that means it might rain, but there's your weather update on Jacksonville, Indy. One game that I want to talk about that I was kind of leading into this one with my last question in a way I think that we can get different in a game that you don't feel uncomfortable attacking is San Francisco and Arizona, also in the afternoon slate, which helps in terms of swapping if you feel like you want to swap some things around, late swap. But Jordan Mason is going to be pretty popular in that one yet again. I'm curious what you guys think on if his ownership looks maybe a tick high from a projection standpoint. I don't know if I'm misreading that one, but Deebo Samuel looks awesome to me. George Kittle is apparently going to play. Brock Purdy is at a nice price, and Trey McBride is back, hopefully rectifying some issues that Arizona had on offense last week. John, this game looks like pretty good to me from a tournament perspective, but I'm curious what you guys are doing with San Francisco and Arizona.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite games to get to because the 49ers have the highest implied point total on the slate, but everybody's talking about different games. Everybody's just like, I'm going to play Jordan Mason. Yeah, exactly. Like San Francisco has an implied point total like 7 points higher than the Colts. That's a full touchdown. I like the idea of being over the field on the 49ers passing offense. And I'm going to be playing a lot of Jordan Mason. He's going to be one of my highest owned running backs as well. I mean, I like Kyron Williams a little bit more than Jordan Mason, but like Mason's pretty high up there. But I do for even single entry or for for large field like multi-entry set, I like the idea of playing a lot of Brock Purdy. Like one of the things that's most correlated with quarterback score is implied point total, like of the things that we can like know before the game starts. So yeah, I love the idea of playing like Brock Purdy, playing some Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and leaving like Jordan Mason off that team, or you can even, maybe have one of those guys with Jordan Mason. I think there's a lot of different ways to play this game, and it's a game we probably want to get to more so than it's being talked about, or more so than the field.
Neil, Mr. Gerg, I thought that said Mr. Greg, but it says Mr. Gerg, says, I hate stacking Purdy when everyone is healthy. And I certainly understand that sentiment. I'm really into the Purdy Deebo thing today. The Kittle injury annoyed the crap out of me, but I'm super into that. It's leverage off of Jordan Mason. It's leverage off of, Jordan Love, Jaden Reed stacks. However, it is difficult to kind of pin down the 49ers, which I think is the concern and the lower projected ownership. But what do you think about San Fran? And do you have a preference? Are you kind of playing them all or none? What's your take?
Yeah, I'm kind of playing them all. Definitely understand the sentiment, but also, we do have pretty big differences in terms of like ownership here. So you can go with the Deebo, lean into the projection there. You're getting some ownership there. Then you can bring down the ownership of your stack when you're playing Purdy with Deebo by putting in an Ayuk or a Kittle, or just make sure you're not single stack. I think that single stack maybe gets a good amount of ownership, but there are ways to get different within the stack. You could go completely contrarian within the stack by going to Ayuk and Kittle. So I like stacking it up several different ways. Deebo is my highest exposed, so I'm with the field there, but going to have some lineups that have Ayuk or Kittle and don't have Deebo. I think those contrarian plays make a lot of sense here as well. Even I don't think I'm playing Jawan Jennings. I think I might be an idiot though for not playing Jawan Jennings, because man, there are some signs that he might be real. He's looking really good. He's in this chalky offense, not going to get ownership, even though he's going to be running all the routes. So that feels like a spot that I could just be missing by not playing Jawan Jennings. I've talked too much about the slate and not been talking about Jawan Jennings at this point. I sort of feel like take locked into not playing Jawan Jennings, but there's a part of me that's like, is this stupid? Am I just an idiot to not play him? But I like Kittle. I like Deebo. I like Ayuk, and I'm gonna be playing a good amount. I'm gonna be over the field on Brock Purdy stacks. I think just leaning into the game with the highest total makes some sense. And Jordan Mason, I'm gonna have a good amount. Also, projects extremely well, even as his price continues to climb, even as he's still not really involved in the passing game. It's just like it feels like he's gonna get 100 yards and a touchdown against the Cardinals. Obviously, there are paths for failure there, but I'm probably close to the field on Jordan Mason.
I think one thing I like about Deebo specifically is that he's one of those guys, right? Like we think about how do the Packers fails? Like maybe Kyron is just eating the clock all game. Deebo is kind of that guy for Jordan Mason's. Like, how does Jordan Mason not win, the chalk teams, the slate? Is like, well, Deebo's going to steal some of that running back. And we know that that's a fact. He's going to, Isaac Guerrero also got hurt last week. It's going to be Mason and Deebo and Juszczyk essentially in the backfield. I'll also add Brock Purdy has kind of stepped up his game this year. The fantasy results don't look different, so it probably feels like the same thing with Brock Purdy. But from an EPA perspective and taking shots downfield and scrambling around like a madman, he's really been playing a lot better and more aggressive this year. So I think he's got a little more upside at 6,200. John, just quickly on the Cardinals side, not getting any ownership is Marvin Harrison, James Conner, and Trey McBride, but it's also really condensed there. And if the 49ers are going to score all these points, are you bringing it back with any of the Cardinals?
Yeah, I like the idea of playing Trey McBride, and it might be a bad idea, but you generally don't want to play guys against the 49ers defense that much. But Trey McBride did have over 100 yards and I think 10 receptions against the 49ers team last season, and the opportunity cost at tight end just isn't that high. Like what happens if Tucker Kraft doesn't have a great game, even though he's 3,500 and going to be one of the highest owned players on DraftKings? Well, if Trey McBride, has another 10 reception, 100-yard game against the 49ers defense, I think he's the guy that I want to be running it back with. It wouldn't be shocking if Marvin, I'm going to have like a single-digit amount of Marvin Harrison, but it's probably not a great play. I'm just much more interested in the 49ers side of this game.
Makes a ton of sense. Next game, there was a question about so two more games actually. The first one I want to get to that I think is also somewhat similarly intriguing as the San Francisco game is Baltimore and Cincinnati. But the two pretty good offenses, Lamar Jackson, Neil, we talked about having all this money. And so I'm like, should I just play Lamar? Like, that seems like a decent idea. There is a Zay Flowers on the other side because I'm pretending Mark Andrews doesn't exist anymore. There's Jamar Chase and T. Higgins on the other side. What are you doing with Baltimore and Cincinnati in tournaments?
Yeah, I think Lamar Jackson does make some sense in theory. I don't think I'm on it right now, which this is another one that, like, if you tell me Lamar Jackson puts up 35 fantasy points on this Bengals defense because the Bengals are also able to keep it close, like, you're right. This is a pretty obvious game that has high upside potential. Currently, I'm playing it through Joe Burrow. I do have a bit of Joe Burrow. I'm more than double the field on Joe Burrow. So I guess I'm playing it that way. But yeah, certainly Lamar could be the one that you need from this game. I like Jamar Chase just fine. I'm not taking a huge stand on Jamar Chase. I think I'm pretty close to the field there. T. Higgins has had great usage since he's returned. Been kind of a target hog for the Bengals. So yeah, I think a lot of ways to play it. I am currently getting mostly to Jamar Chase. So actually, I'm wrong. I'm well over the field on Jamar Chase. I did not realize how much I actually have. I currently have 32%. Not sure if I'm going to stick with that. Not really intentional, but I guess if you're playing a lot of Bengal stacks, Eric All, I think, is playable this week. I think could see the role expand at any moment. Now it is, kind of a 3-headed tight end room there. I don't know if he has the use to get there, but he's been really good when he's on the field in terms of earning targets. So I think borderline playable. Yoshivas, I think, borderline playable. We have enough value that it's not really great value there on Yoshivas. But yeah, I like playing it mostly through the Bengals passing game. If you want to play Lamar Jackson, those stacks, Zay Flowers, I think that makes a lot of sense. Don't really know probably don't want to do double stacks. That's probably why I'm not getting to Lamar Jackson, because I haven't had time to input, like doing single stacks, that kind of stuff. And nobody else actually looks that good for the Ravens outside of Zay Flowers. But I think Lamar makes some sense. And then, of course, Derrick Henry, just against this Bengals defense, if he puts up 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, nobody's going to be shocked. The price is high enough that it's not like an auto play, but looks pretty good.
That is definitely the last thing we need to talk about in this game, John. It is that of King Henry, who hilariously stayed in the game to try to get 200 yards last week, which is like funny and silly, but also like, man, they're clearly down to load Derrick Henry up with some carries out there in Baltimore. Pretty good matchup at the prices, whatever. And as we talk about a lot on this slate, a non-pass catching running back feels a little iffy at these kind of prices, but it's Derrick Henry in a good spot. What are you doing with him?
I'm always under the field on Derrick Henry, even in Showdown. When he broke off the 87-yard touchdown against Buffalo, like literally, it's like just close the laptop. Like, okay, it's not going to be my night. So yeah, I'm always under the field on Derrick Henry. I love the idea of getting to this game though, and being over the field on this game. Like, this is a high total game. Everybody looked at this game at the beginning of the week and said, yeah, it's got like a high total and it could be back and forth, but it's too expensive. Like, we can't get there. And then like more and more value opens up. Like, this is the game that I want to spend that value on. You just would not be shocked if Lamar Jackson breaks the slate. I mean, I think he's the highest projected quarterback. It's just like, well, he's, it doesn't project well from a point per dollar perspective. But like, if he puts up 35 points, we don't really care about point per dollar. It's going to be a good point per dollar no matter what his salary is. So I like the idea of being over the field on this game. I think I've got Jamar Chase tagged as one of my wide receivers in lineup HQ. So yeah, I love this game. Love the idea of playing like Lamar Jackson with Jamar Chase, and hoping that those are like the pieces from this game that just go berserk.
I love that. Another game that we've gotten some good questions on, quite a few. I guess I should say, I'm not going to say your name because it makes me sound wildly inappropriate, but he asks, any Justice Hill love? I will say the Justice Hill role is wild. He's like, he's the RB2, but like the wide receiver 2 as well on this offense. Like any 1 in 150 Justice Hill, he is like crazy involved in the passing game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any currently. I'm not playing 150 lineups. But what is the price tag on Justice Hill? There's enough value that I haven't really thought about.
Yeah,
5,300.
53.
In a Bengals stack, I think you could go that way, just from the standpoint of they're playing from behind because the Bengals put up so many points. Justice Hill, like this is one of those backfields that it's very game script dependent. So the Ravens are going to be passing more if they are down. So yeah, I think I'm debating. Does that make sense to go in a Bengal stack like we assume? But then we assume the Bengals are getting up a lot, and yeah,
or
I
just
think
like
that makes sense.
But I think however you think it goes best game script wise, like that's probably up for debate between all of us. But you're playing him in a Ravens are trailing game script. However the hell you want, is that Chase Brown or Zach Moss, or whatever. Right. But like it's a Ravens are trailing. I think it's tough on this slate because I want to talk about some of these other backup running backs or these other running backs because we've talked a lot about wide receivers and game stacks and all that kind of stuff. I think it's a little difficult to get the justice because, John, on this slate, we talked about Tyrone Tracy, and it's crazy because in most weeks, some of these running backs, we'd be like, all right, what are we doing with Alexander Madison? We'd be like, what are we doing with Tyrone Tracy? What are we doing with Antonio Gibson? What are we doing with XYZ? And they're not even like we're an hour into the show and we're finally bringing these guys up, right? Because, pricing and just the strength of other running backs. But let's start with Madison but just kind of talk about some of these other non-chalk, non-Ken Walker, Mason, et cetera, running backs. What are you doing with some of these guys? Like maybe the situation's not so good. The Raiders don't look awesome, but this is like we got workhorse cheap running backs or starting running backs that no one's playing. How are you attacking those guys?
So I'll be honest. The chalk running backs look pretty good. So I don't feel like that's necessarily a position where we need to get completely different. I guess some of the cheaper guys that I like that are maybe not chalk. Jerome Ford. I'm always going to be over the field on Jerome Ford. And like Javonte Williams. I'm kind of waiting for that game where Bo Nix just checks down to Javonte Williams like 8-10 times. And we all just have DraftKings gold. So I think those are the two guys that I'm probably most interested in from the non-chalky running backs. But I think it's a good position. I don't know. Kyron Williams looks pretty good to me. Jordan Mason looks pretty good. So I don't feel like it's a position where I have to get different.
Neil, what do you think about these running backs?
I think I like him a little bit better than John does. I agree. The chalk looks pretty good. We have several chalk options that I'm more interested in. Could see myself getting to some Javonte Williams. Antonio Gibson, I think, is pretty interesting against the Miami run funnel defense, taking over as a starting running back. We don't really know to what extent. We know Antonio Gibson getting the start. Who knows if it's still just going to be a complete running back by committee situation, but sort of promising to see him get the start in what should be a great spot against Miami's run funnel defense. He's only 5,100, should be involved in the passing game. So I do have interest in Antonio Gibson at 5,100 on DraftKings. Javonte to a lesser extent, going to get a little bit more ownership there, but obviously a great matchup with Las Vegas, could be more involved in the passing game. For the most part, I am with John on Jerome Ford. I like that. Going to have some there. Trying to see if I have any other lower owned running backs. I guess ETN, we talked about it earlier, but I'm well above the field on ETN. He's coming in at single digit ownership, but for the most part, I'm looking at my top exposed running backs. They're all double digit owned. I'm kind of leaning into the chalk for the most part.
So am I. And this player is double digit owned, but one guy I also wanted to toss out there is DeAndre Swift. Facing Carolina. Somebody, I think Donnie just said it in the chat. We've picked on Carolina and Washington defenses all season, and nobody wants to play guys against them this week, which I think is understandable why it's not happening, but also maybe potentially exploitable. This slate is being treated like an NBA DFS slate, in my opinion, from an ownership. And I get it because it probably should be, but sometimes you get NBA DFS slates where, I'm dating myself. Okay. But Marcus Smart is out back in the day, and so Terry Rozier or whatever, right? Like that situation. But by the way, the Wizards are playing, and it's like, you could just play guys against no one has to be out to crush the Wizards. Right. And I'm not saying Carolina, we have to do that with Carolina, but everybody's like, the Bears stink. The Browns stink. I don't want to play those guys against the Patriots. Definitely stink. I don't want to play those guys. So I just wanted to talk about that's kind of what those running backs are. Is like nobody wants to play those offenses.
The look on Squirrel's face when the Wizards just caught a random stray there, like he just like
he knows it better than anybody. And get ready for it again. If you liked playing guys against the Wizards in previous years, wait till you got point guard Jordan Poole, and Jonas Valanciunas on the Wizards. The real Coors Field is coming to John's home.
No, I love playing. Like, I love the fact that the Wizards and the Commanders have terrible defenses, because the DFS game of the week is always on local television. It's great. Like
used to be that way for my Timberwolves.
Yeah.
That used to be the most fun. As a Timberwolves fan, it was like, I'm going to watch the game. I'm just going to load up on my Timberwolves game because I can play, Kevin Love back in the day or Karl Anthony Towns, and then just load up on the opposing team also because there's going to be high scoring when you've got a good offense and a terrible defense. That is the most fun for your home team for DFS purposes. So
is there any interest, John, in your home team? You talked about Jerome Ford, but Washington games have been pretty awesome. Okay, you were good. It was frozen for just a second. Jaden Daniels, right? Terry McLaurin, Brian Robinson's good to go. Austin Eckler's back. Jerome Ford and Njoku is back on the Brown side. Any interest in this game? Because it is still the Washington defense, and maybe the Browns defense isn't as good.
I do. Actually, I like this game a lot. Because the Commanders are a defense we want to pick on. I'm not playing it so much from the Commander side, but I want to be over the field on Deshaun Watson, Jerome Ford, Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper, I think, had a long touchdown called back last week. Like, if you put that touchdown in his stats, he'd be much higher owned this week. So I don't think people should forget about this Commanders defense. I think there's a good chance the Commanders offense doesn't look as good as it has against the Browns defense. But I like the idea of being over the field on the Browns.
Neil, any interest in this one?
Yeah, lot of interest. Amari Cooper particularly looks great. We talked about Jerome Ford. I think John and myself are both over there. I'm going to mix in a little bit of like negligible ownership going to Elijah Moore. I think is pretty interesting. Jerry Jeudy, I think, is in play, even if he is just a guy against this Commanders defense. I'll take that all day. So some interest in Jerry Jeudy. I think it's a great spot for the Browns in general. I agree. Like, we've been targeting these teams all season. Why not continue to target them? The other one that he brought up was the Carolina defense, and of course we have the biggest remember me game for DJ Moore coming in here against the Panthers here. So hard not to like that too.
I think that game is pretty interesting as well. I think the theme here of these recent guys, you can play some of that chalk, and there's such easy ways to get a little bit different and make a really strong lineup even around, if you really want to play Jaden Reed, just freaking play Jaden Reed, because you have all these other opportunities. We've been playing the Panthers for the last 2 weeks since Andy Dalton has come back, and it's done nothing but pay dividends. Deontay Johnson is an alpha. Chuba Hubbard has been awesome as the starting running back there. And the Panthers defense, they're like I'm using this, they're not a dollar store version of John's Washington team, but I don't know what the Washington is sexier. They got Jaden Daniels and all that kind of stuff. I'm not sure that Andy Dalton although some people might think he's sexier. But the Carolina, right? It's like they're going to push back on offense somewhat, at least, and the defense is terrible, and we know who it's going to on the Carolina side. So what about the Bears, John? What about the Bears? What about Deontay and Chuba and anything in this one?
This is a game that I'm probably not getting to that much. It's just another kind of lower total game. I think Carolina is the side we want to get to because of the Chuba Hubbard, Deontay Johnson. They've looked much better with Andy Dalton. There's still a team that's got an 18.25 implied point total. It's just a game that I don't see necessarily taking off that much. The Bears have a good defense. I think the Bears are going to win this game in a way that doesn't necessarily produce good fantasy scores for anybody.
Neil?
Yeah, I think I'm more into the Bears than John is, just because there are ways for this to fail. So it's a little bit different than the Packers situation, where it kind of feels like there's no way that somebody doesn't score here. Certainly could happen that the Bears score in a way that nobody actually puts up a score you need. But we haven't really seen the breakout from DJ Moore. I think this is as good a spot as any for DJ Moore to potentially break out against the Panthers. He does appear to be the clear wide receiver one. So most of my interest goes to DJ Moore. I don't know if I'm going to get to Caleb. I don't think I'm going to get to, at least not much, Romo Dunze or Keenan Allen. You brought up DeAndre Swift. I think is playable. So yeah, I think mostly DJ Moore, but it does feel like the Bears should be able to score points here. No sure thing with Caleb Williams, as he's looked kind of shaky at times this year. So maybe they just don't put up many points. But even if it's no sure thing, I think, for large field GPPs, makes some sense to take shots on DJ Moore.
Shannon asks, Neil, favorite players to stack with Caleb. Obviously, you mentioned DJ Moore there, but at Cole Kmet at tight end, is he in your player pool?
Yep, that's it. That's a good one. I was just thinking, got to bring up Cole Kmet too. I think the role has gotten a lot better since week 1 when it was Gerald Everett season. It appears to be Cole Kmet season now, a little bit more expensive. So not going to get a ton of ownership between we kind of have, the expensive guys who look really good. You got George Kittle there, you got Brock Bowers, fun names at the top. And then you've got the cheaper Tucker Kraft, Colby Parkinson. So you kind of have these different tiers, and Cole Kmet kind of getting lost in the middle there in a great matchup. So I do like the idea of DJ Moore, Cole Kmet double stack if you're playing Caleb.
It sounds bizarre to say out loud. I kind of like Cole Kmet this week, but he kind of took over once he took back over that tight end role from Gerald Everett. I think it was notable. He's in my potential mix for tournaments. Let's hit some questions here down the home stretch. Oh, a game that we haven't talked about. My apologies. We should have before now. But the Bills, after getting stomped out by Baltimore last week, head to Houston for a pretty fun game, but certainly not getting much ownership in this one. A little bit of Nico Collins, and that's about it, John. 2 good quarterbacks, a bunch of talented players, but not a lot of ownership and kind of a goofy game. What are you doing with Bills and Texans?
Yeah, it's a game I want to get to more. I look at it a little bit like the Baltimore-Cincinnati game, where it's a game that we looked at and thought maybe it's too expensive. And then we start to have some value open up, and it's we probably should be looking at this game more. But you have to make some decisions. So I'm playing some of it in my 150 set. I'm kind of going for it. I may end up with a single entry team that's got CJ Stroud and Nico Collins, because I think it's going to be under-owned, and it is a game that can take off. I don't know what to say other than I wish I was playing more of it. But I'm kind of opting to go with the Baltimore Cincinnati side with my ownership. But it's clearly a game that can take off. So I wish I had more of it.
I love John has 45 minutes to make his lineups and saying he wants to play more of this game and being like, well, what can I do?
Nothing I can do. There's too many other games. There's too many other games to play. You can't get to this one. I would say that I'm largely on the same page. I do like Josh Allen. I am forcing some Josh Allen stacks. He's so expensive that it's nobody wants to get to Josh Allen when there are so many great plays who are cheaper than Josh Allen. It's always tough with the Bills because they have such a rotation at receiver, but it helps that Khalil Shakir is out. So that's part of it for me, is been a little bit of a, seems to be an exploitable secondary for the Texans. Texans offense should be able to keep up with the Bills, so they should have to keep throwing throughout the game. And maybe one of these games they actually do condense on one receiver a little bit. It seems more likely with Khalil Shakir out. So I'm going to some Josh Allen stacks with Dalton Kincaid and Keon Coleman. I think you could certainly single stack Josh Allen, but I think Kincaid, Coleman is getting zero ownership. To me, looks kind of interesting. It might not be that great, but he's 4,700. Should see opportunities with Khalil Shakir out against a secondary that they could put up points on. So I have some interest in really low owned Bills stacks. Feels gross. It could drastically underperform for the price tag with Josh Allen being so expensive. So I understand the hesitation to go there, but for large field GPPs, I like the idea of taking some shots on there, because Josh Allen scores 35 points in a game where they're pushed against the Texans. Doesn't shock me. Keon Coleman has his first 100 yards and a touchdown kind of game. I can certainly see ways for it to get there. Curtis Samuel, I think, also in play. And then on the other side, we have the Stephon Diggs. I mean, this is the real revenge game. Stephon Diggs probably going to see some targets here against the Bills. So like the matchup for Stephon Diggs, the price tag is fine. We do have Tank Dell back, Nico Collins there, so kind of again might get squeezed. But I think Diggs in play, and obviously Nico Collins always in play for the Texans.
I do think the Bills are interesting because they kind of need to get pushed. I know they got pushed last week and scored 10 points, so it can go poorly, of course, but also they're pretty run heavy. I don't know if anybody's watched the first three games when they started 3-0. It's a whole lot of running and not a whole lot of passing. Theoretically, if the Texans can push them, I think that's good. I think there's a question about Dalton Kincaid. I think he's a pretty good tournament tight end. I know it feels gross, right? He hasn't been good. The price doesn't feel good for what we're getting. But if you get that run out and they have to throw a lot more, I think he's an interesting like benefactor from Shakir being out. Shakir being a slot receiver, Kincaid being kind of the move tight end could be pretty good for him. Let's try to hit some more of these questions. Donnie asks about we kind of talked about this one, but we didn't touch on Brian Robinson. Any Brian Robinson for you guys?
I don't think so.
We have Eckler back.
Eckler back. Tough matchup. Yeah.
DST. We don't often get to the defense takes. And I know you guys are a lot more kind of spread them out at defense, but anybody standing out to you specifically for tournaments, the Broncos projecting it, I think they should on DraftKings as the highest owned defense, but anybody standing out to you, John?
Yeah, it's the Broncos, and I do think I want to be under the field. I think we're going to see a lot of the same lineup, like it's like a Jordan Love stack with Broncos defense.
How many dupes in the millie? How many dupes in the millie of the optimals? Yeah, crazy.
Like defensive scoring just like doesn't line up with like defensive performance so often, right? Like when a team runs back 2 punt returns or whatever for touchdowns, or even worse, like runs back 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns. Like the defense just gave up 2 touchdowns. And suddenly the defensive, special teams unit for the fantasy, score, puts up a huge fantasy score. So yeah, I'm going to be under the field on the Broncos defense. It does occur to me this might be one of those weeks where we just see absurd defensive ownership. And if the Broncos put up a massive defensive score, it's probably not my week.
Yep. I agree with that take. I'm going to be underweight to the Broncos. Patriots look pretty interesting against Miami. Now that I don't think the Dolphins are going to throw a ton, so that's kind of the one knock on the Patriots. They should be able to at least keep it to be a low scoring game. Like the defense is pretty good, but hard to really prioritize it. Yeah, I don't typically have really strong takes on defenses. I think Broncos, slightly underweight there. Patriots I like. Browns kind of interesting just because they have a good defense. People want to play Washington, so I think there's a little bit of a leverage potential situation there. Same thing with Baltimore. I think I'm playing some Cincinnati, but in lineups where I'm not playing Cincinnati, don't hate the idea of playing Baltimore. I think Cincinnati might just continue to throw throughout the game, so maybe more opportunities for a pick six or something. Pretty good Baltimore defense there. Also think we're talking about how much we love playing the offense in the Jags-Colts game. I think it's kind of interesting to play the Jags defense. I don't think they're they're obviously not a great defense, but Joe Flacco hasn't really played yet this year. I know he was great last year, but probably going to throw quite a bit. Some more opportunities for an interception. I think Jags are at least interesting. I think that's all I really have to say about defenses.
I was going to shout maybe my favorite tournament defense, and it's on the opposite side of that game, and it's the Colts. Now plug your nose. Don't look at if you like to know who defensive players are and who the good defensive players are, don't look at the Colts defense because they don't have any of them, and the good ones they do have are not playing today because they're hurt. But I don't really get it. They are rushing the passer like fiends on the Colts side, and if we've watched the Jags for the first month of the season, not great on offense, not awesome. And I think John nailed it earlier. Doug Peterson might get fired if he loses today to the Colts. Doug Peterson genuinely his career might be over as a head coach if he doesn't win today. I think they're going to be aggressive. I think some chaos could happen in that game, especially if it's raining. I kind of like both the defenses in that one for tournaments, especially as pivots off the Broncos, who are Gardner Minshew going to check it down to Jacoby Myers and Trey Tucker all day. The Broncos seem fine, but I don't think they should be 5 times as owned as all these other defenses. Before we start to bring the crunch time folks in, we got to hit our tournament winner take, but we didn't touch on absolutely everything or absolutely every game. Just super quick, is there anybody that you guys are playing? John, start with you. Anybody that you're playing or interested in, maybe that we haven't hit on yet?
I just think we should aim to be a little bit over the field on 49ers. And so I'll just throw out the name like Brandon Ayuk is a guy that is kind of getting lost in the shuffle with all the other 49ers pieces coming back. And John Jennings looking really good. Like that 49ers are going to put up points. And so we should be playing them in our fantasy lineups.
Super quick, Neil, I want you to hit that question. And then I also want you to answer 2 out of the 3 of these guys. T. Higgins, Brandon Ayuk, and Terry McLaurin. Pick 2.
The first 2. I think I would leave out Terry McLaurin in that one. Just tough matchup with the Browns. Looking through my top exposed players, I think we hit on basically every player that I have significant exposure to. I don't know. We didn't talk in depth about Chuba Hubbard, but I think Chuba Hubbard is in play against a sort of run funnel Chicago defense. So I actually have the same exposure to Chuba Hubbard and Deontay Johnson. But for the most part, yeah, looks like we kind of talked about all the players I'm playing a lot of.
I love it. So now, John, let's go to you first for the tournament winner. I believe, did you give us Zach Ertz in this segment last week? Like,
I think so.
Yeah. You tried to follow up my De'Ami Brown take. Let's leave the Commanders out of this because we're
it's easier today with them playing Cleveland.
Over 2. Thank God they're playing Cleveland because I posted a 0, literal stone cold 0 the last time I said a Commander. Who we got that's going to be in the Millie winner today?
Jeez, man, I was gonna go Zach Ertz, but the negative reaction. Now I'm scrambling. No. I'll go with Jamar Chase. I think this Baltimore Cincinnati game being overlooked, like Jamar Chase is clearly a wide receiver that can break a slate, and we're just not thinking about it. So I'll go Jamar Chase.
Neil.
I mean, maybe we're paying too much to build a great lineup here, but I kind of want to go with Jaden Reed. I think Jaden Reed just looks so great. He is, I believe, my highest exposed player right now. I know John loves him also, so I was kind of expecting John to say Jaden Reed, so I was going to scramble to say somebody else, but I'll throw Jaden Reed in there.
The perfect correlation on this lineup, I actually think all 3 of these players are somewhat similar, but Jaden Reed has often been called Baby Debo. And I'm going to toss grown-up Debo into our mix here. I think that John has mentioned everything about both these guys have mentioned the 49ers and our love for the 49ers, the leverage off of Jordan Mason, and just play the really good football players. And Debo Samuel's like a really good football player in a really good matchup in a really good role. So I think that is going to cover it for us. We got to bring in the crunch time crew here. We'll do our fun little crossover segment, get their takes and no Brit for bets today, but we'll start to craft a lineup here of the crunch time GPP Final Takes crossover. So let's go ahead and bring those guys in. TJ, you've been waiting behind the curtain for multiple hours. We got to go to you first. Also, man! I was hoping John was going to stay frozen because it was a beautiful. TJ, I know you're itching. You're itching to add to our winning lineup here. What are you thinking for today?
So I'll go Kenneth Walker. To me, he is the most important running back on the slate. I think I have Ken Walker in every lineup that doesn't have Geno Smith as the quarterback today. So he's my biggest stand. I'm absolutely loading up. This Giants team is just an absolute mess without their only good 2 offensive players. I think this is a game script I feel very confident in, and so I'm rolling Kenneth Walker.
I love it, Chief.
Oh God, I like too many things this week because nobody likes the too many things that I like. I'm a lot higher on this Miami offense, I think, than most people. I think people think this offense is dead because Tua's not there and Huntley looked like crap last week. But I mean, we've seen Tyler Huntley step in for Lamar Jackson and be very serviceable and help teams win football games. And so if people think Tyreek Hill is suddenly not one play away from an 80-yard touchdown, and the same thing for Jalen Waddle, who's 5,700, and Tyreek 76, and they're getting like less than 5% ownership combined, and Devin Achane, who is also like, this offense isn't as dead as people think it is. And so I'm close to like Dolphins onslaught in my main DraftKings team right now. I just don't think this offense is all the way dead. Secondly, I feel like no one wants to play the Texans today. Like Stroud's getting no ownership. Collins is getting some. Diggs isn't getting any. And we just saw Buffalo get boat raced. And, Cam Akers is the running back. Like, they're not just going to give Cam Akers 25 carries. If they beat this team, CJ Stroud's going for 303. So between the Houston passing game and the Miami offense in general, I'm probably too high on it, but I can't help myself because no one else wants to play it today. Everyone wants to shiny new toy Jaden Reed.
I am in love with those takes. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I have the stomach that Chief has to click the Dolphins, but it's pretty interesting. You guys, I don't know if you guys played the 2-gamer on Monday, but people love the Dolphins.
Right? I jammed it. I loved it so much on Monday. So and I keep going back to that, thinking
every lineup on the 2-gamer. It was either Huntley or Levis. And how did that go? Not great.
No. Yeah, no, I love that call, even though I also have not had the stomach to actually say it or play it. It's been too I just can't do it after watching the last week's game. But absolutely, we know Tyreek Hill, we know Devin Achane, Jalen Waddle have the ability, just one play, just a broken play. Suddenly you have this massive touchdown, basically pays off the salary in a single play. And Tyler Huntley, I mean, that was part of the reason we were on him last week, was he's been so serviceable in the past. Come in for Lamar Jackson 3 years ago, he was awesome in that role. Hasn't been as great since then, but we know he has it in there somewhere. So yeah, those are some good calls.
I love it. We'll get out of you guys' hair. Stick with these two fine gentlemen, giving you more spicy we led in with Dolphins takes. I can only imagine what they got in store for you guys. And the three of us will see you next week. Peace.
Great job to John, to Neil, to Erik. And I'm now here for some NFL crunch time with my guy. You usually have us for Sunday nights, and now you got us for the main slate as well. My name is TJ Zwarych. This is Will Priester, Chief Justice. How you doing, Chief?
I'm good, man. Doing great. I think looks like the chat's going to hone in on my Miami take, but they ignored my Houston take altogether. I did mention that no one's playing Houston today either. But listen, I'm running 150 lineups today, so I can, explore and try to exploit some things that no one wants to play. And if Miami scores 30 points today, then you can just thank me later, along with the Houston Texans. But hey, what do I know? I just play DFS. It is what it is. Javon says it's going to be some snowflakes. Look, here's the other thing. It could very well be snowflakes, but if you're asking me what's undervalued right now, when's the last time?
It's going to be at least a few $100,000.
Yeah, I mean, when's the last time Tyreek's been $7,600? Waddle's been $57,000. I mean, Waddle's been like a $7K receiver, and Tyreek's been close to $9K for 2 or 3 seasons now. So once again, don't just hone in on Miami. Like I said the same thing about Houston. Like, no one wants to play Houston today, and they could very well destroy the slate between Stroud, Collins, and Diggs. And so I'm going to have some heavier pieces of those games, versus the field where everybody wants to play Jordan Love and Jaden Reed. And I do have Jordan Love and Jaden Reed, my main team on FanDuel, because I did some other creative things to get them in there. But, on DraftKings, I'm going to do something a little bit different. But hopefully everybody understands the approach I'm taking. I just like to zig when others zag. And, it's worked out for me. So let's have some fun. Let's talk about this slate.
Let's do it. And we want to thank everyone joining us live today. Smash that like button. Let's battle that YouTube algorithm. Help us get noticed. Help us get up there. We have literal thousands of people watching right now across the site. So thank you so much for tuning in. Smash that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell. And I dropped the RotoGrinders Listener League link in the chat as well. So there's still, as J3 just mentioned, about 30 spots left in that one. Shout out to Rory Donaghy for taking down the Week 4 Listener League. You guys can compete every single week for a chance to win yourself a month of RotoGrinders Premium, a full month. And so the link's in the description. I dropped it in the YouTube chat as well. And if you want to win, you want to help build your lineups, you should check out Combo Lite. Our newest product gives you the power of simulation for a fraction of the price of our other tools. Competitors charge hundreds a month for their sim products, but Combo Lite is just $39.99, and it includes our SimLabs lineup building tool, plus content from some of your favorite DFS analysts. Combo Lite doesn't limit you to one sport either. It includes SimLabs access to the 4 most popular sports: MLB, NFL, NBA, PGA. You won't find a more cost-effective option anywhere, literally anywhere. Oh, hey, Obi-Wan, my dog, is having a little cameo. So is Sonic. They're right there saying hello. Hopefully they stay quiet. Chief, we talked a few stacks that we like already. I think we should go basically stacks position by position. Then we'll take some QQs here from everybody. So who are some of your higher owned stacks today? I know you like Miami. I know you like Houston. Who else are you going to be on today?
Let me check, because when I'm building a script, it's easy for me to just go in my lineups page and just kind of see what I kind of have in terms of team stack summary. So believe it or not, my top 2 are Green Bay and San Francisco, but my next 2 down, which aren't that far apart, are Miami and Houston. So if that makes any sense. So Green Bay's first, San Francisco is second, Miami's third, Houston fourth. If you want my fifth, is actually the Colts. If you want me to go that far down, the Colts are next. I ended up, I think, on 7 or 8 quarterbacks today, which I try to usually get around 5 or 6, but there were just some other ones that I wanted to make sure I got in there. So, but yeah, my top stacks: Green Bay, San Francisco, Miami, Houston. Those are my top 4. Indiana being 5th.
Yeah, it's the Packers for me, definitely number 1. And my favorite way to get different, which we'll touch on it more as we go position by position, but I just love stacking up the Packers with Jordan Love and omitting Tucker Kraft. Tucker Kraft kind of looking like he's going to be the most over-owned player on the slate today. And as long as he doesn't score a touchdown, I don't think he's really going to hurt me. And so I love the idea of double and triple stacks with Jordan Love today, playing Reed and Wicks, maybe even throwing in Bo Melton and playing a 2 to 3 man stack without Tucker Kraft is one of my favorite ways to do that. And then Colts are number 2 for me. It's gross. Actually, no, the gross team is number 4. I love the Bills as my 3rd favorite stack. I think without
I get it.
That should really, really condense that his targets a little bit with Shakir out there, I hope. And so I'm playing some Coleman, some Samuel, some Kincaid, but I love Josh Allen. And then number 4 is my gross one. I'm getting to the Browns. I'm getting to Deshaun Watson. I really like Chicago. I'm getting to a touch of the Rams, just because, as you can see in our SimLabs tool, Matthew Stafford is currently projecting as the most under-owned quarterback. I got a little Daniels and I got a little Burrow, but my main
Can we talk about the Rams real quick since you were right there?
Yeah.
Let me say this. So when I was building earlier today, Rams were popping in everywhere, TJ. So here's how I typically build. I say, all right, I want my quarterback with at least one receiver or tight end, right? And I build and I start looking at lineup to kind of see how lineup HQ is building before I start refining and setting groups. I just want to kind of get an idea of, hey, if I just hit the button, what does this look like? And what it looked like was a lot of Kyren Williams and sometimes 1 or 2 Rams receivers, which told me that the Rams were really popping today. Now, obviously, I've since gone back and set groups and say, hey, if I got Kyren Williams, I don't want more than 1 Ram receiver. I don't want Kyren Williams and 2 Rams receivers and possibly, Parkinson. I don't want that. But once again, it is, the Rams were popping today in lineup HQ, which was very interesting for me, considering, everybody's going to be on the Green Bay side. Well, Green Bay and Kyren is basically what you're going to see a lot of. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, it was some Jordan Whittington in there as well. But I think there are some really interesting spots in that game to pivot off of, get different a little bit. My main 4, kind of like I said, that I'd be choosing from a single entry, 3 entry max would be Buffalo, Green Bay, Cleveland, and the Colts as my 4 favorite guys there. Let's talk specifics of the quarterback position, though. If you were running a cash game, who would be your top option? And then same thing for single entry, etc. And more importantly, I think, how heavy do you feel like you need to be stacking when you're playing the quarterback that you are playing? Because obviously guys like Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, they are the 3rd and 4th highest owned quarterbacks today. I don't feel the need to stack up those players as much as I would with a Jordan Love. I would never play a Jordan Love or a Brock Purdy naked, especially on a slate like this. So who would be your cash game quarterback? For me, I think it would be Love. But for the most part, I think it would just depend on how much salary you have left. If you only have 6,200, I think it's fine to go Purdy over Love. I wouldn't change anything. If you happen to have 68, well, then I would pick Jaden Daniels over both of them for his rushing upside. How about you?
Yeah, so I think in cash games today, you can go a lot of different directions because each quarterback has a different way they're going to get there. So like with Daniels, if you're playing Daniels, you're playing Daniels saying Daniels is not throwing for 300 yards. He may not even throw for 250. Probably won't get close. His max might be 220, but he probably gets you 40 to 60 yards on the ground and possibly a rushing touchdown. So, and TJ, maybe he throws for a touchdown, right? So that's why, to me, if you're playing Jaden Daniels, you're playing him purely for the access to some type of a rushing floor, which helps his ceiling, right? I think if you're playing Jordan Love, you're saying, hey, the Rams aren't quite what we thought they were going to be this season. Defense hasn't been great. Jordan Love could throw for 250 and 3 easily here. And that's why I think you're playing Jordan Love. With Brock Purdy, I think what we're saying is, well, wait a minute. Brock Purdy's being overlooked. He's been one of the most consistent yardage quarterbacks this season, throwing for well over 250 most games. And TJ, the big touchdown game hasn't even come with 3 or 4 passing touchdowns. So he hits 3 or 4 passing touchdowns plus his 250. Now you're saying, hey, Brock Purdy has a nice floor because he's airing it out, but also has some ceiling. So I think if you're sticking in that group, those 3, I don't think you can go wrong with any of those 3, TJ. You take your pick. I think if you land on any of them, you should be perfectly fine today. If I had to choose one, it's probably Purdy, but that's just me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Any of the 3 are totally fine for a cash game, which if you have 68, go Daniels. But if that $600 can upgrade something else, get you something you really like, absolutely go Purdy. If you're somewhere in the middle, fine, Love. Like all 3 of them are really, really great options today. For tournaments, like I said, I wouldn't play Purdy or Love unless I'm stacking them with at least, I think, 2 pass catchers in this spot. You can make the argument with 1 for Purdy, but personally, I would want to go at least 2 in tournaments. Daniels and Jackson, I think I would only need 1, but the Genos, the Lawrence, the Flaccos, the Watsons, the Burrows. Personally, my strategy is, unless it's a running quarterback like a Daniels, a Jackson, and Allen even, I need to be at least double stacking in a tournament with a large field if I want to be making some money on it.
I get it. I will say this. You mentioned double stacking, TJ, and I know that with the way this season has gone and kind of how people have been talking about how the passing game has been down, like I feel like people are less likely to double stack now, TJ, than they have been in the past.
No one wants to. I've been like in the chat through these shows all day. I keep on saying it, like, I want 2 of these guys. I want 2 of these guys. I want 3 here. And everybody seems to just be wanting to single stack. And I think people just kind of forget the sheer upside that this brings if a quarterback throws 4 touchdowns. And even though it didn't happen the first 2-3 weeks, now it started to happen more and more these last couple. And I think it's the way to go in these tournaments if you're not playing a running QB like Jaden Daniels or Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, and that's the other reason why I was so interested in Houston, because I don't think you'll see a lot of, and this is for tournaments. Let me make sure I make that clear. This is purely tournaments. This is a cash game take. But this is why I was so interested in a Stroud, Collins, Diggs, Stroud, Collins, Dell, Stroud, Diggs, Dell, Stroud. You see, like that type of build, because I just don't think people are going to see that. And once again, I'm not saying CJ Stroud is the best quarterback play, but what I'm saying is if he throws for 300, over 300, he has 3 touchdowns, the likelihood of Dell, Collins, and Diggs getting there are pretty likely. And 2 of them could be slate breakers if they get there. And I know Dell's cheaper than the other one. So obviously if Dell picks up 22 fantasy points, that's a lot different than Nico picking up 22, because you can, put that salary somewhere else in terms of distribution. But even if Collins ended up with 25 and Diggs ended up with 22 and Stroud goes for 30, like that's almost 100 points between 3 guys. So I'm with you. I think in terms of tournament play where the field is getting away from the double stack, and I understand that, I still think it's viable with certain situations. It's not going to be viable in every situation, but in certain situations, it's viable. I definitely like it with Houston today. I believe it or not, I like it with Flacco today, because if he's going to air it out, I mean, you got to think Pittman and I know we haven't talked like position by position, but Pittman and one other receiver should get there if Flacco's airing it out the way we think he will.
Couldn't agree more. Let's bounce it over to the running back position. Like I mentioned, if you got any questions, get them in the YouTube chat, get them in the RotoGrinders live stream Discord chat. I will be checking both of those. It's RotoGrinders or rotogrinders.com/Discord. And if you're watching on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell. All you got to do if you're watching on your computer is you just take your mouse, slide it over, click the like. If you're watching on your phone, it's 2 steps. It's more than one. You got to hit hide chat, then you got to hit that like button. Go ahead and do that for us. It makes a big difference. We appreciate it. Let's talk running backs. I think the main decision, like the main guys you're choosing from a cash game setting are Mason, Williams, Walker, if you can get up there and afford them. I'm prioritizing Mason and Walker above as my favorite options on the slate, but there's nothing wrong with Kyren. There's nothing wrong if you need to get down to Chuba Hubbard. And while I don't think he's a target, like he's not like a must play for me by any means, I think Tyrone Tracy without Devin Singletary at 4,300, if you land on him, like you have 4,300 remaining at a flex or a running back position, that's totally fine. It's not necessary. I don't think you need to target him, but it is totally fine. I like Javonte Williams. I like Jerome Ford. Madison's fine. ATN, I think, is great, specifically in Joe Flacco stacks. Josh Jacobs as a way of getting off of the passing game for Green Bay is really strong, and somebody I like today. And then Antonio Gibson is another potential cheap option as well. I don't mind. If you look at our SimLabs tool, which you get access to with Combo Light, you can see even though Derrick Henry and Jordan Mason are picking up a lot of ownership today, they're actually coming in under-owned compared to their optimal lineup rates. So both of them looking like really, really strong chalk in this spot. Chief, who are you liking today for tournaments?
So let me just say, I think the upper tier at running back, Kyren, Mason, Walker, I really think those are the obvious plays. Like I don't have to sell anybody on those. TJ, can I take a trip to the bottom dwellers here? I just think there's so much value at running back this week. And I think I heard them talking about it on the Tournament Take show, the show right before ours. Look, man, and I think Ebeimfohr might have mentioned this specifically. So Ebeimfohr, I think that was you. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure it was Ebeimfohr. The cheap running back options this week feel like they're unlimited. Tracy, Gibson, Madison, Swift, Sermon, Ford, Hubbard. Like, TJ, we've got so many options at what I consider to be cheap running back, but we're not really seeing the ownership because everyone's piling up on Kyren and Mason. They're doing that because those are the good plays. But these cheap running backs are also good plays. Now, here's the difference, I think, between this week and some of the other weeks. We're not as in love with the upper tier of receiver, TJ, because we don't have Justin Jefferson. We don't have Rashee Rice. And I know Rashee Rice is hurt, but I'm saying he's been a part of that. We don't have Malik Neighbors. We just don't have this plethora of big name wide receivers that we're used to. But TJ, we do have them, right? We do have Jamar Chase. We do have a Tyreek Hill. And I know people, don't like Tyreek Hill today. I get it. We do have DK Metcalf. We do have Jaden Reed at 65 who's going to pick up ownership. And then we're down into the 6K range with Pittman, Waddle, Christian Kirk, Wan'Dale Robinson, who may get 12 to 15 targets again today. My point is, it drops off really fast at receiver this week in terms of salary. So people are just spending up. But TJ, what if you just decided, you know what? We talked about the double stack, right? What if I just decided, you know what? I'm playing Stroud, I'm playing Collins, I'm playing Diggs, I'll play another big name receiver, and I'll just spin down at every running back position that I have. What you're going to end up with is really different lineup construction. So you're going to get you're allocating your salary in a different space to be different, but I really don't think you're giving up as much upside as you feel like you are, TJ. You get what I'm saying? Because if Brock Purdy, and I know I'm talking about running back with receiver, but if Brock Purdy has a 300-yard passing game and 4 touchdowns, and Mason doesn't get any touchdowns, he can rush for over 100 yards and still get 15 points and not be optimal. You get what I'm saying? Because he didn't hit ceiling. So I'm saying that to say, I think the cheap running back position is a lot more valuable than we're looking at it this week, because we all want to spend up on Kyren and Mason. Full disclosure, I have Kyren and Mason in my FanDuel lineup, but it's just because I ended up with this really interesting construction, and I just went ahead and played them. You get what I'm saying? But on DraftKings, I don't think I'm going to have Kyren or Mason in my single entry team. I'm going to get leverage at those positions because those two guys are soaking up more position than pretty much any player this week outside of maybe Jaden Reed. And I still think they're getting more ownership than him.
Power rank for me your top 3 in order running backs, 6,800. So
You
Kenneth
said
Walker and above. Top 3 in order.
Kenneth Walker and above. For tournaments, give me Walker. Give me Kyren. Give me Mason. If I had to rank them like out of that group. Full disclosure, the only running backs I have out of that group in my pool, Walker, A-Chain, Mason Williams, Derrick Henry. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, that's who I have, 6,800 and above. Everybody else is below that.
For me, Kenneth Walker 1, Jordan Mason 2, and in a vacuum, it's Derrick Henry 3, but I am getting to more Kyren Williams just because of how much Jordan Love that I'm playing. Which in hindsight, maybe I want to make a little pivot over there on one of those. I probably did already. And then now sub 6K. So 5,900 and below. Yep. Give me your top 3 in order.
So for me, because he's the cheapest, and I think he's going to get some good volume, give me Tracy at 4,300. Like, that price, I just think that price is too good to pass up. So give me Tracy. Give me Jerome Ford at 5,800. Give me this one is a tie for me, even though they're different in price. Trey Sermon and Antonio Gibson are a tie for me today because Gibson, I think, is going to get work in the passing game. I mean, he had 3 catches for 63 yards last week, I think it was. And I'm not saying he's going to have 3 for 63, but I do understand like his work in the passing game could be really good. So give me Trey Sermon and Antonio Gibson in a tie.
What I'm going to do here quick is as soon as we get through these, we will go through a FanDuel build, and then we'll take questions immediately after that. So I see a lot of FanDuel questions. Don't worry. We will absolutely get to them before lock. And in addition to that, we will go through a quicker version of the position by position, but on FanDuel too, to highlight the differences. Receivers here, like you said, we got a lot of the cheaper and mid-range ones coming out as higher owned plays today. Jaden Reed and Michael Pittman highlighting that group. In cash games, you have to play Jaden Reed and Michael Pittman. I think you play Wicks as well. That is where things get difficult, is you may not want to play 3 Green Bay pass catchers in a cash game lineup without Jordan Love. I personally think Jaden Reed and Wicks are higher priorities than Tucker Kraft. I would way rather fade Tucker Kraft, even in the cash game, than Reed or Wicks. I think the best options are Pittman, Reed, Wicks. However, if you feel like you want to prioritize Whittington over Wicks in a cash game setting and use Tucker Kraft, there's nothing wrong with that either. My biggest stand, I think, at the receiver position today is I have 0% Nico Collins. It's from a multitude of reasons. One, he's expensive. Two, Buffalo has been elite against outside receivers so far this year, where they've given up all their damages the middle of the field. Who plays the middle of the field? It's Stephon Diggs in the slot position in a revenge game. It just lines up so perfectly for him to be the top option, with their defense likely focusing more on Nico Collins anyways. So I love Diggs as a tournament option today at the wide receiver position. I'm full stacking the heck out of Green Bay. So I have lineups that have Reed, Wicks, and Bo Melton all at the receiving position. Bo Melton is my favorite sub 4K receiver today. He's the one I like getting to the most in as terms of punts. Mid-tier, my top options are Amari Cooper, Michael Pittman, Brian Thomas Jr., I think is my favorite three. I am getting to some Deontay Johnson. I have McLaurin on my one Jaden Daniels team. I'm playing Smith and Jigba and DK Metcalf with my Geno Smith team. I got Kirk on my Trevor Lawrence team, Jennings on my Purdy team, etc., etc. Wan'Dale Robinson, I think I would only want to really use in like cash small field settings. I just don't super trust him in large field to have a big ceiling unless you're playing him with Kenneth Walker or with a Seahawks stack. I love Jacoby Myers as a super low owned option today. I think he's got a really high ceiling, but my favorite is the Green Bay guys in general. I'm going to be heavily overweight on all of them. Who are you prioritizing at the receivers? I know you mentioned you like the expensive ones.
Yeah, TJ. So in terms of, where my ownership shook out today, and I'm moving to receiver now. Let me just say, I only have like 85 players in there. I have more exposure. These are my top three, and some of these are tied, but Deontay Johnson is one. Clearly, he's like my number one guy today in terms of ownership. Wicks is second. Dontavian Wicks is second. Michael Pittman Jr. is third. Those are my top three exposure. I know all of those are kind of, Johnson and Pittman are kind of in the same range, and Wicks is like $1,000 cheaper. So, I get that. My next level down is Whittington, Reed, and Tyreek Hill. So if you want to kind of get an idea where my head is, that's where I am, TJ. In terms of, who I like in the upper tier, I do like Jamar Chase quite a bit, and I do still like Nico quite a bit. And I totally understand your logic in terms of where they do their damage, which is why I have a fair amount of Stephon Diggs also. Have a ton of Stephon Diggs. But once again, I'm going back to Miami here. I'm very interested in Tyreek Hill, despite the fact that they've had a rough showing the past couple of weeks. Here's what I was encouraged by last week, even though it was a terrible performance, TJ. It's not like Tyreek Hill had targets that just completely fell off a cliff. This was like one of the worst games they could have played. He had 7 targets. You get what I'm saying? So if they have a good game, what if he sees 10 to 12 targets today against New England, where Huntley should be a lot better, another week into the system. So once again, I know it's Miami, but I'm really convicted with Miami today. I think they're able to play a little bit better. So I do like Tyreek Hill. And I also like DK Metcalf quite a bit because of his big play ability downfield. So, and they've been utilizing that also, TJ, week to week now. So I think we're 2 or 3 weeks in a row where, he's popped for some, 30, 40, 50-yard receiving plays, and all of them don't have to be touchdowns. He gets one catch for 30, 40 yards, CJ, and then picks up another 4 or 5 for 30 yards and a touchdown. Like, we're looking at a really nice performance by him. So, like him a ton. Obviously, Jaden Reed is a great play. I think someone that's slightly off the beaten path today, you mentioned that you're going to pair him with Trevor Lawrence, is Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk has seen double-digit targets in back-to-back games, TJ. And I mean, he's getting 6% ownership. These are the receiver salary levels where we've seen people take down milli makers this year, nailing the 5K and 6K receivers. I think Christian Kirk is one of those, along with Jalen Waddle. I like Sutton at 5,500, who's also seeing double-digit targets frequently here. Jerry Jeudy seeing a nice target share. So I just think there's a lot of options in the cheaper range at receiver also, TJ. So there you have it.
I like it. Great rundown. We got about 10 minutes left to lock here. I typed in some answers to a lot of the questions, but we will still get to them in terms of analysis as well. I just wanted to make sure I gave you an answer in case we started running out of time. Tight end position today. Everybody's playing Tucker Kraft. I think one of the best things you can do in tournaments is run a full stack of Green Bay, 2 to 3 pass catchers, and not play Tucker Kraft. Play a different tight end instead. Some of my favorite options to do that with are Dalton Kincaid as a spend up. I really like Kincaid today, but Brenton Strange is going to be my favorite options. If I'm not mistaken, the Colts have given up a touchdown to a tight end in every game this year so far, I think. Strange had a little bit of a lower roll last week, but the matchup is just absolutely spectacular. I think he's essentially the same play as Kraft, but at 25% less ownership. So I think as long as you're not playing Kraft or Parkinson, you're going to be different enough. And Kincaid and Strange are going to be my favorite options. Other than that, it's just only people in my stacks for me. I have some Njoku, even though he's expected to be on a pitch count. I have Njoku on in a couple of my Watson teams, Komet on a couple of my Caleb Williams teams, Eric All on a Burrow team, George Kittle on a Purdy team, and that's about it.
Yeah, I love those calls. I think Kraft is fine just because he's not expensive, but I'm with you. Like, I don't feel like he has to be the guy. I'm much more interested in Dalton Kincaid today than anyone else. And here's why, TJ. And I think we saw something similar last week where all the receivers were out, or not all the receivers, but we had some main pieces out, and we were left with Dallas Goedert. And clearly, we saw Dallas Goedert pick up massive targets in that game from Jalen Hurts. And I think we see something similar today from Josh Allen. I think there's going to be a concerted effort to try and get one of their better playmakers the ball. Now, I'm not saying Keon Coleman and the other guys won't get looks also, TJ. They're going to have to, right? But I think this is a spot where Dalton Kincaid, who came into the season, us thinking he was going to be one of their main options anyway, Dalton Kincaid should see 10 targets today. And if that's the case, I mean, that's what we're looking for in a $5,300 tight end, a guy that's going to operate like a number one option. And I think he is that number one option in the passing game today. Kincaid is definitely going to be my favorite. I'm fine with Brock Bowers. I'm fine with Trey McBride. Fine with Gesicki. Fine with Jonnu Smith. Like, I've got Strange. I've got Theo Johnson. I'm fine with Parkinson. Fine with Zach Ertz. Fine with Hunter Henry. I've got cheap guys. I've just got a wide variety of guys that I'm playing today. But Dalton Kincaid is absolutely my top option.
All right, let's go. We got about 6.5 minutes left to lock. Let's go lightning round through our analysis for FanDuel as well as defenses here. Then we'll take a few QQs. Defense, cash games, it's always whoever fits, but Broncos are probably the first choice. I'd rather not play the Panthers if I don't have to. I'd rather spend up a little bit, but you just play whoever the heck you want and fits at the defensive position. Who would be your top 3 favorite Ds for tournaments? I think mine are the Seahawks, the Bears, and the Colts.
The Texans, the Panthers, Texans, Panthers, Packers, I assume. No, Texans, Panthers, Broncos.
All right, FanDuel at the quarterback position. If you're playing a little cash today, I think it's the same as DraftKings, but you have a fourth option as well in Lamar Jackson. If you have 8,800 as an option, I think you just play Lamar over Jaden Daniels, but I also don't think it's crazy to go Fields or Lawrence in this spot. Lawrence just because he's so cheap. Flacco is super cheap. But Justin Fields does have that running ability too at 7,600. So if I'm being perfectly honest, the quarterback position in cash on FanDuel, I'm probably just filling it out last. Like Jordan Love correlates really well because you're probably going to be playing a lot of pass catchers, but I really just want to fill this out last here for a cash perspective. Any disagreements there or any changes on DraftKings who you're prioritizing for tournaments?
Nope, not really.
All right. FanDuel, I think Kenneth Walker at 7,400 is going to be my priority here for cash games of Kyren Williams and Jordan Mason. If I have the 8,700, I'd do Mason. But if not, I'm totally fine with Kyren. But it's like we talked about for FanDuel. I don't think there's anything going wrong with going cheap here instead. Tracy, Swift, Jacobs, Ford, Etienne, even Javonte Williams. If you land on them as a last piece, I think that is totally fine. But these three up top, Mason, Williams, and Kyren, and Kenneth Walker, if you can get those three, that's best case scenario. Only one I'm really not fond of, and that's picking up ownership, is Najee Harris. Anything else, Chief?
Nope.
All right. Receiver position. Jaden Reed and Dontavion Wicks are the primary options. Get at least one of them, but for his price, Michael Pittman I think is the best overall option at receiver on FanDuel. 6,100, just so wildly cheap. I think Reed, Pittman, Wicks, Whittington, Deontay Johnson, and maybe even George Pickens at only 6K are probably your cash game priorities there. But the pivots are the same people we like on DraftKings, guys like Amari Cooper, guys like Brian Thomas, guys like Christian Kirk, Josh Downs. All of these are really good options for tournaments as well. Any notes at receiver?
Love Pittman, love Diggs. Pittman's kind of a favorite of mine today for what it's worth. So yeah.
I love Pittman today as well. Tight end position. I think Jake Ferguson is my favorite option here from a cash game, him or Kincaid. I actually I like Kincaid a little bit better personally, but Ferguson is picking up more ownership, which is fine in a cash game, and you get that late night hammer. So I think Ferguson or Kincaid, though, are the two between you're choosing from. Just don't go Tucker Kraft, I think. I think that's your kind of top option there. He's 5,300. It's not even a price discount on FanDuel. We're just going to him pretty much because he's a DraftKings play as well, and he's been talked up all week. So I think Tucker Kraft is probably the guy you want to fade there. I do love Trey McBride.
And I went Kincaid as my main on DraftKings and FanDuel for tight end for what it's worth.
Yeah, I love that call. Love Kincaid quite a bit. A question in the YouTube chat. Is there a DST you can play below 3,800 or below on FanDuel? The Browns are the one looking at a little chalk there, but I would way rather play the Colts.
I don't mind the Panthers also.
And then or go all the way down to the Panthers and upgrade somewhere else. I would agree with that as well, especially if you're in a cash setting. In tournaments, I don't know if I would go there because of the ownership, but in cash, I think you go Panthers or you try and get up to the Broncos. If you can't, though, and if you want that 3,800, you don't want to change, you love your team, I would go with the Colts as my option there. We got 2 minutes to lock. Make sure you get your lineups in. For tourneys, am I crazy for liking from MT Red Sox? Am I crazy for liking Stafford and pass catchers in the spot off of leverage off Kyren, and then Jacobs on the other side as a run back? What do you think of that for tournaments?
Oh, I don't mind that at all. That's a fantastic strategy. Fantastic.
DK Cash, Mason and Diggs, or Walker and Nico. Oh, that's tough. My tournament brain is telling me it's Mason and Diggs side, but for cash, I kind of feel like it's probably Walker Nico. What do you think?
Honestly, I think either's fine. That to me, that's a straight up 2v2 that could work out equally.
It's quite literally a coin flip. I think I go Mason Diggs, but like it's tough. I like Diggs better than Nico. I like Walker better than Mason. Both of those are totally great options. Walker and Nico will project a little bit better in the projections, which is I think that's what you do in a cash game setting as a tiebreaker. Donnie Watson says he doesn't know why more people aren't on Curtis Samuel for the Bills today. I think
those
it's just
pass
because
catchers in general.
Yeah, we just don't really know what his role is going to be too. I think if he takes over Shakir's role in the slot, he'd be a really great play. But I don't think that is necessarily. We know that for sure. It could
easily be Hollins also picking up big yardage. Like you just don't know. But if you're stacking that game, which we've hit lock now. But if you're stacking that game, the right play was to take Josh Allen. You need to be playing multiple lineups and stacking with every one of those receivers. If you want to stack him, you could also run him naked.
FanDuel Cash, Purdy and Wandale, or Love and Whittington. I would go Purdy and Wandale. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. That one is locked, but I would go Josh Allen straight up. Walker and the Panthers, or Pittman and the Broncos. I believe that is locked too, but I would go Walker and the Panthers for cash. And that's it. Etienne or Jacobs on FanDuel. That is totally lineup dependent. If I don't have any other Green Bay players, it would definitely be Jacobs. FanDuel Cash, Wandale Robinson or George Pickens. What do you think, Chief?
Listen, I'm going Wandale just because, he's going to get massive amounts of targets today, TJ. Now, that doesn't mean they're all going to be good targets, but I think he sees double-digit targets again.
For FanDuel, I would just tempted to go Pickens because you don't have that point per reception there. But either one I think is totally fine. Wandale is going to be the one who projects a little bit better, I think.
It's just the volume. Like even if he has
volume for cash,
60, 70 yards,
it does feel safer. Make sure you smash the like button on the way out. This has been 3.5 hours straight of NFL content. We are at lock. Good luck today, everyone. We hope you win some money. Chief and I will be back this evening, time pending, but take a look at the YouTube page for the Showdown slate today. Might be an hour earlier, might be right before lock, TBD. So stay tuned. Chief and I will be back later today. Smash that like button. If you're watching us on YouTube, good luck today, everyone. We will see you later tonight. On behalf of myself and Chief, you have been crunched.